Hello, dear friends. So glad you could join us at Harry Fictional Hub. Today's narrative adventure is titled What If Harry Married the Goddess of Magic and Received a Divine Harem to Rule the Wizarding Multiverse. We put our heart into every story we share. If you appreciate our work, showing some love with a like and subscribe would make our day. The story begins now. Chapter 1, The Goddess's Choice. The crack of apparition split the night air as Harry Potter materialized in the abandoned warehouse district. Rain drummed against corrugated metal roofs, providing cover for his arrival. 3 years as head Auror had taught him to trust his instincts, and tonight they screamed danger. Anything? Harry whispered, his breath visible in the cold November air. Auror Jenkins emerged from the shadows, her wand lowered. Nothing yet, sir. But the magical signature is off the charts. Never seen readings like these. Harry nodded, emerald eyes scanning the darkness. At 25, he'd outgrown the gangly awkwardness of his youth. Battle-hardened reflexes and years of hunting dark wizards had forged him into something formidable. The scar on his forehead had faded to a thin white line, but new ones marked his hands and forearms, badges earned in service to magical Britain. The Department of Mysteries should have sent someone by now, Harry said, advancing toward a hulking warehouse at the end of the row. This isn't standard magical discharge. Jenkins followed, her wand casting a subtle detection charm. Maybe they don't know what it is either. The readings keep shifting. Like it's magic, but not any kind I've encountered. Harry stopped at the warehouse entrance. The rusted door hung partially open, and even without magical detection, he could feel it, a pulsing, living energy emanating from within. Magic had textures and signatures as distinctive as sense, but this felt ancient, primal. Stay alert. If I give the signal, you leave. Don't wait, don't argue. Harry's tone left no room for debate. Inside, darkness concealed most of the cavernous space, but in the center, a phenomenon defied explanation. What appeared to be a tear in reality itself hung suspended 6 feet above the ground, a jagged, vertical rent in the air through which impossible colors swirled and pulsed. Merlin's beard, Jenkins breathed. Harry approached cautiously, his wand extended. Contact the Ministry. Tell them we've found. The tear expanded violently, surging outward. Harry pushed Jenkins back with one hand while casting a shield charm with the other. The magical barrier flared brilliant blue as the energy wave struck it, and shattered like glass. Harry was thrown backward, slamming into a support column. The impact drove the air from his lungs, but he maintained his grip on his wand, rolling to his feet as Jenkins scrambled toward the exit. Get out! He shouted, already moving back toward the tear, which was now contracting and expanding rhythmically. Something was emerging. Harry raised his wand, a dozen combat spells at the ready, when a woman stepped through the tear. No, not stepped. She floated, her bare feet never touching the concrete floor. Her hair rippled like living shadow, framing a face of ethereal beauty that seemed to shift subtly with each passing second. Her eyes, though, her eyes remained constant, ancient, knowing, and the precise color of wild magic. Harry Potter, she said, her voice resonating on multiple frequencies at once. Finally, we meet face to face. Harry maintained his defensive stance. Who are you? What is this? A smile curved her lips. I have many names across many realities. In your ancestors' time, I was called Morrigan. I am what your kind would call a goddess, the embodiment of magic itself. That's not possible. Harry circled carefully, keeping distance between them. Magic doesn't have embodiments or gods. All those years studying at Hogwarts, and they never taught you the origins of your power. She laughed, the sound like crystal bells. How provincial your wizards have become, forgetting their own history. The tear behind her pulsed violently, and she winced, her perfect composure momentarily fractured. You're hurt, Harry observed, lowering his wand slightly. Years of experience had taught him to read threats, and despite her power, he sensed no malevolence from her, only urgency and fear. Not hurt. Weakened. She gestured to the tear. This is not my doing. Someone is attacking the fabric between magical realities, and I can no longer maintain the boundaries alone. Harry's analytical mind raced. The magical surges across Britain. The unexplainable phenomena the ministry's been scrambling to contain, that's related to this. Symptoms of a greater disease. She drifted closer. I've been watching you since your birth, Harry Potter. You survived death itself. You mastered the deathly hallows. You bear a Nexus soul, incredibly rare, even across the multiverse. A what? A soul capable of channeling divine magic. A focal point where realities converge. Her expression grew serious. I need your help, Harry Potter. Without it, all magical worlds, including yours, will collapse into chaos. Before Harry could respond, alarms blared outside. Ministry reinforcements. They cannot see me, Morrigan said calmly. To them, you are alone with an unstable magical phenomenon. They will attempt to contain it and fail. Right on cue, the warehouse doors burst open. A team of unspeakables in grey robes stormed in, led by a tall, gaunt man with piercing blue eyes and a perpetual sneer, Malachi Winters, head researcher for the Department of Mysteries. Potter, Winters acknowledged coldly. Step away from the anomaly. This is department business now. Harry didn't move, acutely aware that he alone could see Morrigan. What exactly is your department planning to do with it? Winters signaled his team to deploy equipment around the perimeter. Contain, study, utilize. The usual protocol. Though this one's output readings are extraordinary. You can't contain this, Harry warned. It's not stable. Perhaps not with standard Auror training, Winters replied with a condescending smile. But we've been tracking these anomalies for months. This is the strongest yet, a direct connection to another reality. Imagine what we could learn, what power we could harness. Morrigan's voice echoed in Harry's mind. He doesn't understand what he's tampering with. Each reality has its own magical signature. Forcing them together without proper stabilization will accelerate the collapse. Harry watched as the unspeakables set up containment runes. Winters, I'm ordering you to stop. We need to close this, not study it. Ordering me? Winters laughed. Your jurisdiction ended the moment we classified this phenomenon, Auror Potter. Now stand aside or be removed. Harry felt Morrigan move closer, her presence cool against his consciousness. He seeks to drain power from the tear. I can show you what will happen if he succeeds. Without warning, Harry's vision shifted. He saw London, but wrong, distorted. Magic itself unraveled. Buildings liquefied and reformed in impossible shapes. People transformed spontaneously into creatures of nightmare. Reality fractured like broken glass. He gasped as the vision ended, finding himself on one knee with his wand braced against the floor. Potter? Jenkins had re-entered, concern etched on her face. Harry rose, his decision made. Everyone out. Now. Winters scoffed. You have no authority, I'm not asking. Harry's magic surged, a visible aura of power emanating from him that made the air crackle. In one fluid motion, he sent a wave of force that disabled the containment equipment without harming the unspeakables. This site is under Auror jurisdiction due to imminent threat to magical Britain. Clear the building, or I'll have you arrested for obstruction. The junior unspeakables hesitated, looking to Winters, who was livid. This isn't over, Potter, he snarled, signaling his team to retreat. The minister will hear about this overreach. Once alone, Harry turned back to Morrigan. Show me what's really happening. All of it. Her smile was approving. You command rather than ask. Good. You'll need that authority. She extended her hand. Take my hand, Nexus child, and see the truth of your multiverse. Harry hesitated only briefly before clasping her offered hand. The warehouse vanished. Harry found himself suspended in what appeared to be the cosmos itself, but instead of stars, he saw countless shimmering bubbles, each containing what looked like an entire world. Every sphere is a separate magical reality, Morrigan explained, guiding him through the void. Some very similar to your own with minor differences. Others with magic so foreign you would hardly recognize it. Harry stared in wonder at worlds where magic flowed like visible rivers across landscapes, where spellcasting involved dance instead of wands, where magical creatures built civilizations alongside humans. They're all connected by the tapestry, the fundamental magic that binds all realities. She gestured to gossamer threads linking the spheres. For eons, I have maintained these boundaries, allowing each world to develop its own magical traditions while preventing catastrophic bleed-through. Her expression darkened as she directed his attention to areas where the threads had frayed, where bubbles pressed dangerously against one another. Something is weakening me, attacking the very foundations of magic itself. These tears are appearing across all realities, and I can no longer seal them alone. Harry studied the pattern of deterioration. This isn't random. The tears are concentrated, targeted. Someone's doing this deliberately. Yes. Someone who understands the nature of the multiverse. Morrigan's eyes met his. I need a champion, Harry Potter. A mortal anchor with a nexus soul who can channel my power and help restore the boundaries. Why me? Because you've already died once and returned. Because you've united the Hallows. Because your magical signature resonates with the tapestry itself. She circled him. But mostly because you have proven, time and again, that you wield power with wisdom rather than ambition. Harry considered her words carefully. If I agree, what exactly would that entail? A covenant. I would bind a portion of my essence to you, granting you powers beyond ordinary wizardry. You would become my voice and hand across the realities, finding and sealing these tears while I focus on reinforcing the tapestry itself. And the catch? Morrigan's laugh was genuine. Perceptive. The power would change you, Harry Potter. You would no longer be merely human. Your ties to a single reality would weaken as you become attuned to many. And you would need to gather others, those with complementary magical signatures from different realities who can help stabilize the damaged sections of the tapestry. Others? A divine circle. In cruder terms, mortals might call it a harem, though it's about magical resonance rather than carnal desires. Her expression was matter of fact. Each reality has potential nexus bearers whose magic, when combined with yours, can create powerful stabilization points. Harry frowned. I'm not interested in collecting people like trophies. Of course not. That's precisely why you're suitable. She touched his cheek. You'll seek allies, not possessions. The bond must be freely given, built on genuine connection. Such bonds, when forged with divine intent, become powerful anchors for reality itself. The cosmic vision faded, returning them to the warehouse. The tear pulsed ominously, larger than before. Time grows short, Morrigan said. Already your ministry fool attempts to access the tear from another location. The damage spreads. Harry felt the weight of the decision. Part of him, the part that had craved normality his entire life, rebelled against the idea of another world-saving mission. But the larger part, the part that had always stepped forward when needed, knew his answer already. What do I need to do? Relief washed across her face. The ritual is simple but profound. I will channel a portion of my essence through the tear, and you must accept it willingly into yourself. Harry nodded, squaring his shoulders. I consent. Morrigan approached the tear, which responded to her presence by calming its erratic pulses. She reached into it, drawing forth what looked like liquid starlight that coalesced around her hand. Harry James Potter, Nexus Bearer, Master of Death, do you accept the mantle of Divine Champion, with all its powers and responsibilities? Do you vow to protect the tapestry of magic across all realities, to seek worthy allies who will stand with you in this cause, to use this power not for dominion but for preservation? The formal words resonated with ancient power, and Harry felt the weight of them as he replied, I accept the mantle. I make this vow. Morrigan pressed her starlight-covered palm against his chest. Then receive my blessing and become more than you were. Divine fire coursed through Harry's veins. He gasped as his senses expanded exponentially, perceiving layers of reality he'd never imagined. His magic, always powerful, now felt boundless, connected to something vast beyond comprehension. When the transformation subsided, Harry stood changed. His eyes now held flecks of the same wild color as Morrigan's. His magical aura had transformed into something more complex, multifaceted. It is done, Morrigan said softly. You are now my champion. Harry flexed his fingers, feeling the magic respond differently to his will, more directly, without the intermediary of his wand. I can feel the tear, and others beyond it. Your first task awaits through this very portal. This tear leads to another Britain, one where elemental magic dominates rather than your wand work. There, Winters has already made contact with forces that do not understand what they meddle with. Harry's brow furrowed. Winters. How could he already be in another reality? Time flows differently between worlds. What was minutes here has been days there. He discovered another method of crossing, crude and destructive, but effective. She gestured to the tear. You must stop whatever he has set in motion and find your first ally. A Nexus-compatible soul dwells in that world, a sorceress of considerable power. Harry took a deep breath, centering himself. How will I recognize her? You'll know, Morrigan said simply. Your souls will resonate. Trust that feeling above all else. Harry removed his Auror robes, standing in more practical attire beneath, dragonhide boots, reinforced trousers, and a simple black shirt. He'd long ago learned to dress for unexpected combat beneath his official uniform. I'll need to contact the ministry, let them know I'm investigating. Time works in our favor, Morrigan interrupted. When you return, barely moments will have passed here, regardless of how long you spend in the other reality. Harry nodded, checking his wand despite his new powers. Old habits. One last question. Can I trust you? Rather than take offense, Morrigan smiled approvingly. Caution serves you well. I am not human, Harry Potter, and my perspective spans eons rather than decades. But in this, our interests align perfectly. I wish to preserve magic in all its forms across all realities. I have chosen you precisely because you will question, because you will make your own judgments rather than blindly follow. It wasn't a complete answer, but Harry hadn't expected one. Gods, in his limited experience with mythology, were rarely straightforward. I'm ready. Step through with intent, she instructed. Visualize sealing the breach, finding the Nexus soul, and stopping Winter's interference. The tear will respond to your divine mantle and deliver you where you need to be. Harry approached the pulsating rift. Up close, he could now see glimpses of the world beyond, a London recognizable in outline but altered in details. Towers of crystalline material rose where concrete buildings should stand. The sky held 2 moons. With a final nod to Morrigan, he stepped forward into another reality. The sensation was nothing like apparition or portkey travel. Instead of being compressed or yanked, Harry felt himself expand, his consciousness briefly touching countless other realities before focusing on his destination. He landed gracefully in what appeared to be an abandoned cathedral. Moonlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting multicolored patterns across stone floors. The tear hovered behind him, smaller from this side but still unstable. Harry immediately sensed he wasn't alone. That's close enough. A woman's voice echoed from the shadows, accompanied by the distinct crackle of elemental magic. Identify yourself and your purpose, Crosser. Harry raised his empty hands slowly, leaving his wand holstered. My name is Harry Potter. I'm here about the tiers between realities and the man from my world who's been interfering with yours. A figure emerged from behind a pillar, tall, with copper-brown skin and silver hair that seemed to float as if underwater. Her eyes shifted color as he watched, cycling through elemental affinities, burning amber, oceanic blue, earthen green, storm gray. She wore armor unlike anything in his world, plates of what looked like enchanted crystal overlaying a bodysuit of flexible material. In her hand, she held no wand but rather a staff topped with a swirling orb of elemental energies. Another one, she said skeptically. Your kind has been nothing but trouble since you started appearing. The Elemental Council has declared all reality crossers to be detained on sight. But even as she spoke, Harry felt it, the resonance Morrigan had described. A humming recognition between his magic and hers, like complementary frequencies finding harmony. She felt it too, her eyes widening slightly. What are you? You're not like the others. I'm here to help, Harry said, lowering his hands. Those tears are symptoms of a larger problem affecting all magical realities. I've been empowered to address it. By whom? By the goddess you might know as Morrigan. The woman's staff lowered fractionally. The mother of magic. She's considered a myth even by our historians. Not a myth, Harry said. And very concerned about what's happening. The man from my reality, Malachi Winters, what has he done here? She studied him intently before answering. He appeared 3 days ago, claiming to be a magical researcher. Demonstrated enough power to impress some council members. He's been granted access to the central confluence to study our elemental binding techniques. Alarm raced through Harry. That's exactly what he shouldn't have. Where is this confluence? Why should I trust you? She countered. For all I know, you're working with him. Harry considered his options. He could sense the tear behind him growing unstable again. Soon it would attract attention. I need to seal that tear before it damages your reality further, he said. Watch what I do, and then decide if I'm trustworthy. Without waiting for her response, Harry turned to the tear. Drawing on his newly acquired divine magic felt instinctive, as if he'd always known how but had been unable to access it. He extended his hands, channeling power through them into the very fabric of the rift. He could perceive the damaged edges now, see how they should align. With careful precision, he began to weave the frayed magical boundaries back together, creating a seamless join that grew stronger with each passing second. The woman watched in undisguised amazement as the tear shrank and finally sealed with a soft pulse of light, leaving only a faint scar in reality that would heal with time. Impossible, she whispered. Even our most powerful archmages couldn't affect those tears. Harry turned back to her, feeling the drain from the work but satisfied with the result. Now do you believe I'm not with Winters? She lowered her staff completely. I'm Lyra Solstice, High Elementalist for the Western Territories. And yes, I think we should talk. She glanced toward the cathedral entrance. But not here. Patrols will have detected that magic spike. Lyra led Harry through back passages of the cathedral and out into a city that was both familiar and alien. London's general layout remained, the Thames still curved through its heart, but the architecture was wildly different. Buildings seemed to grow organically from elemental foundations, some flowing like water frozen in time, others crystalline and faceted, still others appearing to be permanently caught in controlled flame. People moved about wearing clothing that shifted colors and textures based on their surroundings. Some openly manipulated elements, creating small displays of magic as casually as Harry's world might check a watch or light a cigarette. Your reality specializes in elemental magic, Harry observed as they navigated the streets. No wands. Wands. Lyra sounded bemused. What an inefficient channeling method. We bind directly to elemental sources during our choosing ceremony. The elements flow through us, not through tools. She led him to a modest townhouse near what would have been Regent's Park in his London. Inside, protective wards rippled as they passed through, not so different from magical protections in his world, though the energy signature felt more primal. Once inside, Lyra secured the door with a complex gesture that summoned all 4 elements briefly before settling into the frame. "Now," she said, turning to face him fully, "explain exactly what's happening to our realities, who you really are, and what this Winters intends." Harry explained everything Morrigan had shown him, the multiverse of magical realities, the weakening tapestry, and the catastrophic consequences of continued deterioration. He described his own reality's magic system briefly and Winter's position within it. "The Department of Mysteries has always sought power above all else," Harry concluded. "Winters likely sees these tiers as an opportunity to harness magic from other realities to enhance our own. He doesn't understand, or doesn't care, that doing so will destabilize everything." Lyra paced the room, her elemental affinities shifting rapidly as she processed the information. The council fools welcomed him like an honored guest when he demonstrated the ability to channel multiple elements simultaneously, something only our most advanced practitioners can achieve after decades of study. "In my reality, we don't separate magic by elements. Our limitations are different." Harry watched her movements, noting the grace and controlled power in each gesture. "What exactly is this confluence he's been given access to?" "The heart of our magical system. A nexus point where all elemental forces converge and can be harnessed." She stopped pacing. "If what you're saying is true, and he's attempting to drain power from it, it would create catastrophic imbalance," Harry finished. "Possibly tear open more rifts between our worlds." Lyra's expression hardened. "Then we need to stop him immediately. But the confluence is heavily guarded. I have access, but bringing an unauthorized reality crosser would trigger every alarm in the city." Harry felt a smile tug at his lips, the first since this whole ordeal began. "I've had some experience with infiltrating secure magical locations." "I need to know something first," Lyra said, her multicolored eyes fixing on his. "This resonance between us, what does it mean?" "When you appeared, I felt recognition." Harry explained Morrigan's words about Nexus souls and the need for allies from multiple realities. "She called it a divine circle," he finished awkwardly. "Apparently, our magical signatures are compatible in a way that could help stabilize the boundaries between worlds." Rather than looking offended, Lyra appeared intrigued. "Our histories speak of the mother of magic choosing champions in times of great peril, mortals elevated to serve greater purpose." Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "I've always felt different from other elementalists. More, connected to something beyond our reality." She approached him slowly. "May I?" At Harry's nod, she placed her palm against his chest, directly over his heart. The resonance between them intensified immediately, their magics recognizing each other on a fundamental level. "Extraordinary," she murmured. "It's like finding a part of myself I never knew was missing." The moment was interrupted by an alarm sounding in the distance, a wailing tone that rose and fell rhythmically. Lyra jerked away. "The confluence alarm. Something's happening." "Winters," Harry said grimly. "We need to move. Now." They raced through streets now filled with confused citizens and responding elemental guards. The center of the disturbance appeared to be a massive crystalline tower that rose from what would have been Trafalgar Square in Harry's London. "The central confluence," Lyra explained as they ran. "Every elemental ley line in Britain converges there." As they approached, Harry could see the problem immediately. The tower's usual luminescence, visible in surrounding buildings' reflections, had dimmed considerably. Dark veins spread upward from its base, like infection through a living organism. "He's corrupting the elemental flow," Lyra said, horror evident in her voice. "This isn't just theft, it's conversion." Guards surrounded the entrance, their elemental affinities manifesting as visible auras. Lyra flashed an identification crystal, buying them passage through the outer perimeter. "I can get us inside, but once Winter's tampering is discovered, they'll seal everything," she warned. Harry nodded, feeling the divine power Morrigan had granted him rising to the challenge. Get me to him. I'll handle the rest. The interior of the Confluence Tower was a marvel of magical engineering. Channels of pure elemental energy flowed through transparent conduits, converging at various nodes throughout the structure. Under normal circumstances, Harry would have been fascinated by the differences between this magical system and his own. But now all he could focus on was the wrongness spreading through the system. The corrupted channels pulsed with sickly energy, leading upward toward the central chamber. They encountered the first casualties on the third level. Elementalists collapsed near their stations, their natural affinities seemingly drained from them. Lyra knelt beside one, checking vital signs. He's alive, but his elemental connection is severed. I've never seen anything like this. Winters is converting your magic to be compatible with our reality, Harry theorized. Extracting its essence while leaving the form. They proceeded more cautiously, Lyra leading them through service passages to avoid the main thoroughfares. As they climbed higher, the corruption became more prevalent. The central chamber is just ahead, Lyra whispered as they reached the uppermost level. It should be guarded by at least 20 high elementalists. The corridor before them was littered with unconscious guards, their elemental auras completely extinguished. Or it was, Harry said grimly. The massive doors to the central chamber stood open, revealing a spectacular sight. A colossal sphere of pure, swirling elemental energy dominated the room, with hundreds of channels feeding into and out of it. Platforms circled the sphere at various heights, connected by bridges of solidified air. And there, on the highest platform, stood Malachi Winters. He had constructed some kind of device around the sphere, a framework of metal and crystal that pulsed with harvested energy. His back was to them, attention focused on a control panel before him. Magnificent, isn't it? Winters called without turning. The raw power of an entire reality, ready to be harnessed. Your ministry could never imagine such potential, Potter. Harry stepped forward onto the main floor. You need to stop this, Winters. You're destroying their magical foundation. Winters turned, revealing a face transformed by exposure to multiple magical systems. Veins of elemental energy pulsed beneath his skin in unnatural patterns. His eyes glowed with stolen power. Destroying. I'm evolving it. Taking primitive elemental magic and refining it into something useful. He gestured expansively. This is just the beginning. Imagine harvesting the unique magical signatures of dozens, hundreds of realities. Our world could become the center of a magical empire spanning the multiverse. While those other realities collapse, Harry countered, moving slowly around the chamber, looking for a way to reach the upper platform. You're creating imbalance that will eventually destroy everything, including our reality. Winters laughed. Always the hero, Potter. Always thinking so small. His gaze shifted to Lyra. I see you found yourself a native guide. Did she tell you how eagerly her council handed over access to their most precious resource? How little they understood its true value. Lyra's elemental aura flared with anger. You lied to them. Presented yourself as a researcher interested in magical exchange. I am researching. I am exchanging. Winters adjusted something on his device, causing the sphere to pulse painfully. They'll thank me when I return with enhanced elemental bindings drawn from multiple realities. Harry felt the tapestry straining around them. What Winters had created wasn't just draining this world's magic, it was creating a dangerous connection point between multiple realities, forcing them together unnaturally. Lyra, Harry said quietly, can you disrupt his device from here? She assessed the situation quickly. The control panel, perhaps. But the extraction framework itself is too well shielded. Focus on the panel. I'll handle Winters. Without waiting for acknowledgement, Harry called on his new divine power. The transformation was instantaneous, his aura expanding into a visible corona of multispectral energy. With a thought, he launched himself upward, sailing through the air toward Winters' platform. Winter's eyes widened in genuine shock. "What are you?" Harry landed on the platform with supernatural grace, his magic radiating outward in palpable waves. "Something new, Winters. Something you didn't account for." Winters recovered quickly, raising his hands. The stolen elemental magic responded to him, launching a barrage of attacks, fire, ice, crushing stone, and slicing wind simultaneously. Harry didn't dodge. Instead, he extended one hand, creating a barrier of divine energy that absorbed the elemental assault completely. "Impossible," Winters breathed. "Not impossible. Just beyond your understanding." Harry advanced steadily. Last chance to shut it down voluntarily. Below, Lyra had reached the secondary control panel and was working frantically to disrupt the extraction process. Winter's face contorted with rage and desperation. "I won't let you ruin this breakthrough." He slammed his hand onto the main control, overloading the extraction rate. The sphere of elemental energy convulsed violently. Throughout the tower, channels began to rupture. The very fabric of reality around them thinned dangerously. Harry lunged forward, grappling with Winters physically while simultaneously using his divine power to stabilize the reaction. It was like trying to hold back an ocean with bare hands, possible with his new abilities, but immensely taxing. "Lyra," he shouted. "The whole system is going critical." Below, Lyra abandoned the control panel and addressed the elemental sphere directly. She raised her staff, calling to the elements in their own language, a series of resonant tones and frequencies that Harry somehow understood through his connection to Morrigan. The elements responded, recognizing one of their chosen wielders. The violent reaction began to slow as Lyra established a counterbalance to Winter's corruption. Taking advantage of the momentary stabilization, Harry focused his attention fully on Winters. The researcher had become a conduit for misaligned magical energies, power flowing through him in destructive patterns. "The extraction must continue," Winters gasped, his humanity rapidly fading beneath the magical overflow. "The knowledge, the power. It's killing you," Harry said, maintaining his grip. "Your body can't contain magic from multiple realities without proper alignment. Then I'll evolve beyond physical form." Winter's body began to transform, flesh giving way to a semi-corporeal state of pure magical energy. Harry realized he couldn't stop the transformation. Instead, he focused on containing it, creating a divine barrier around Winters that would prevent the uncontrolled release of energy. "Lyra," he called. "Can you reverse the flow? Send the extracted energy back to its source." She looked up, her elemental affinities all active simultaneously as she fought to stabilize the sphere. "Theoretically, yes. But the channels are corrupted." Harry made an instantaneous decision. "Keep the sphere stable. I'll handle the channels." Drawing deeply on Morrigan's power, Harry expanded his consciousness into the tower's magical infrastructure. He could see the flows now, how they should connect, how Winters had twisted them into unnatural configurations. One by one, Harry began restoring the proper connections, using divine energy to purify the corrupted channels. As each channel cleared, Lyra redirected the flow, returning stolen elemental power to the central sphere. Winters, now barely recognizable as human, fought against his containment. "You don't understand what you're throwing away." "I understand exactly what I'm preserving," Harry countered, maintaining focus despite the strain. The process took precious minutes, during which the tower shuddered around them. Outside, elemental storms manifested spontaneously as the natural order fought to reassert itself. Finally, the last channel cleared. The sphere stabilized, its natural luminescence returning. Throughout the tower, systems began to normalize. Winters, contained within Harry's divine barrier, had completed his transformation into something neither human nor elemental, a chaotic amalgamation of misaligned magical energies. "What now, Potter?" the entity that had been Winters asked, its voice distorted across multiple frequencies. "You can't kill me. I've transcended mortality." "No," Harry agreed, but I can ensure you don't harm anyone else while you figure out what you've become. With precise control, Harry compressed the divine barrier, forcing Winter's new form into a stable configuration. Then, drawing on knowledge that seemed to come directly from Morrigan, he crafted a pocket dimension, a small, self-contained reality where Winters would be isolated but preserved. This isn't imprisonment, Harry told the shifting form. It's quarantine. Until you learn control or choose to release what you've stolen. With a final surge of power, Harry sealed the pocket dimension and sent it into the spaces between realities, where it would harm no one. The effort left him drained. He sank to one knee on the platform, his divine aura dimming temporarily. Lyra ascended to join him, her own power similarly taxed. That was. I don't have words for what that was. Harry managed a tired smile. Neither do I. I'm still figuring out these abilities. Around them, the tower hummed with renewed vigor as elemental energies flowed properly once more. The unconscious guards and workers below had begun to stir as their connections to the elements re-established. What happens now? Lyra asked, helping Harry to his feet. My world is safe for the moment, but what about the others? What about the tears in reality? I need to return to my world, report to Morrigan, and prepare for the next breach. Harry met her eyes directly. But first, I need to ask you something important. He explained in greater detail what Morrigan had told him, about the divine circle, about how souls like theirs, bound together with divine purpose, could create anchor points to stabilize the multiverse. The connection we felt, that resonance, it's rare and valuable, Harry finished. But any commitment must be your choice, freely made. I won't pretend it's a small thing to ask. Lyra was quiet for a long moment, considering. Then she placed her hand over his heart again, feeling the resonance between them strengthen at the contact. My whole life, I've felt called to something greater than territorial politics and elemental advancement, she said finally. When you appeared, I knew immediately you were part of that calling. Her multicolored eyes met his. I choose this path. I choose to stand with you in defense of all magical realities. As she spoke the words, magic swirled around them, not just elemental magic, but something deeper and more fundamental. Harry felt Morrigan's divine power respond, creating the first bond of his circle. A symbol appeared briefly on Lyra's wrist, an intricate marking that represented her connection to Harry and, through him, to Morrigan herself. The council will have questions, Lyra said, examining the symbol with wonder. We'll answer them together, Harry promised. Then we return to my reality and prepare for whatever comes next. As they descended through the now functioning tower, Harry felt something he hadn't expected, a sense of rightness, of purpose reclaimed. He had spent years after Voldemort's defeat searching for meaning in his role as Auror. Now, a new chapter had opened before him, one that spanned not just his world, but countless others. With Lyra beside him, radiating newly enhanced elemental power, Harry faced the future with determined confidence. The multiverse was in peril, but he was no longer alone in his fight to save it. Chapter 2, Convergence of Powers. Harry woke with a startled gasp, fragments of celestial imagery still burning behind his eyelids. Stars falling like rain. A silver city suspended between three moons. A figure reaching desperately through a collapsing portal. The third night in a row, Lyra observed from the doorway of his bedroom. She leaned against the frame, her silver hair catching the early morning light. In the week since they'd returned to Harry's reality, she'd adapted to his world with remarkable ease, trading her crystalline armor for simple jeans and a loose blouse. Only her eyes, still cycling through elemental colors, marked her as something other than human. Harry sat up, running a hand through his perpetually unruly hair. Someone's trying to reach us. I can feel it. Another Nexus soul. Maybe. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed. It feels different from how I sensed you, more distant, more desperate. Grimmauld Place had transformed since Harry's return with Lyra and his acceptance of Morrigan's power. The once gloomy ancestral black home now hummed with multiversal energy. Walls occasionally rippled with glimpses of other realities. Ordinary objects sometimes levitated spontaneously. The portrait of Walburga Black had fled her frame permanently after witnessing Harry's divine aura at full strength. Harry had taken a temporary leave of absence from the Auror department, citing personal reasons. His friends knew something significant had happened, but he'd been vague on details. How exactly did one explain becoming the champion of a goddess and protector of the magical multiverse? Morrigan wants to see us, Lyra said, moving to pour him a cup of tea from the service that had appeared on his nightstand. Another new development, the house seemed increasingly attuned to their needs, providing food and comforts without prompting. She said, "It's time for your next lesson." Harry nodded, accepting the tea gratefully. The goddess had been a frequent, if unpredictable, presence since their return. She appeared when needed, offered cryptic guidance, then vanished again to continue her work stabilizing the tapestry. "Any more readings from the Department of Mysteries?" Harry asked, sipping his tea. Lyra shook her head. "Your monitoring charms haven't detected anything. They're being suspiciously quiet after Winter's disappearance." "That worries me more than if they were actively causing trouble," Harry admitted. After dressing and sharing a quick breakfast in the kitchen, they made their way to what had once been the drawing room. Now it served as their command center, a space where realities met and overlapped. Morrigan awaited them, her form shimmering slightly as if not entirely present in their reality. Today she wore a gown of midnight blue that seemed to contain actual stars shifting beneath its surface. "Your dreams are getting stronger," she said without preamble. "Good. Your divine senses are developing." Harry stepped into the center of the room, where a circular area had been cleared of furniture. "They're not just dreams, are they? They're actual distress calls from another reality." "Indeed." Morrigan circled him slowly. "A world where magic flows from celestial bodies rather than within practitioners themselves. Their reality is under attack, though they don't yet understand the nature of the threat." "The Arcanum Collective," Lyra guessed. Morrigan's expression darkened. "Yes. They've become more aggressive in their harvesting. I had hoped for more time to prepare you, but circumstances force our hand." "You still haven't fully explained who this collective is," Harry pointed out. "Former servants of mine who believe they know better than I how to preserve the multiverse." Morrigan waved her hand, conjuring an image of hooded figures surrounding a massive device that pulsed with harvested magical energy. "They began with noble intentions, mapping tiers between realities, studying the decline of the tapestry. But over centuries, their methods grew extreme. They now believe the only way to prevent total collapse is to concentrate magical power in selected anchor realities while allowing others to fade. That's genocide on a multiversal scale," Lyra said, appalled. "They see it as triage," Morrigan corrected. "And they're not entirely wrong about the danger. The tapestry is indeed failing faster than I can repair it alone. Where they err is in their solution." Her gaze fixed on Harry. "Which is why we must expand your circle and find the artifacts of convergence before they do." "You never mentioned artifacts before," Harry noted. "Because until recently, I believed them lost to the void between realities." Morrigan conjured another image, 3 objects floating in a triangle formation. The scepter, the chalice, and the codex. Created at the dawn of the multiverse to maintain balance between realities. With them, we could repair the tapestry completely rather than merely slowing its decay. And the Arcanum wants them too. They seek the scepter, which can channel power between realities. In their hands, it would accelerate their harvesting efforts catastrophically. Morrigan's form stabilized as she focused her energy. "But first, you need greater control of your divine abilities. The celestial world you've been dreaming of exists in a different magical frequency than either your reality or Lyra's. Accessing it will require precise attunement." What followed was 3 hours of intense magical training. Morrigan pushed Harry's developing abilities to their limits, teaching him to perceive and manipulate the subtle frequencies that differentiated magical realities. Magic has signature vibrations, she explained as Harry struggled to maintain a stable connection to a distant reality she'd selected for practice. Like musical notes. Your world's magic resonates at one frequency, Lyra's at another. You must learn to hear these notes and match them precisely. By midday, Harry was drenched in sweat but making progress. He could now hold a viewing portal open for several minutes, showing glimpses of distant magical worlds. The celestial reality you seek exists here, Morrigan said, guiding his senses toward a specific frequency. Feel its resonance, magic that ebbs and flows with stellar cycles, practitioners who draw power directly from celestial alignments. The portal shimmered, then resolved into a clear image of a gleaming silver city built around what appeared to be an enormous observatory. 3 moons hung in the sky above it, each a different color, amber, blue, and violet. The astral conclave, Morrigan identified. Center of celestial magic in that reality. And home to the star mage you've been sensing, a potential Nexus soul named Orion. Harry studied the image, noting how the city's architecture seemed designed to channel and amplify starlight. And the Arcanum is already there. Their advance forces arrived 3 lunar cycles ago, posing as researchers interested in celestial magic. By now, they'll have identified the reality's magical focal points and begun preparations for extraction. Morrigan's expression grew serious. You must reach Orion before they do. As a Nexus soul, he's both a threat to their plans and a potential asset they would eliminate. How do we get there? Lyra asked, her elemental energies swirling in agitation. Create another tear. No, Morrigan shook her head firmly. That would only damage the tapestry further. Instead, you must use a natural convergence point, a location where realities naturally touch. She turned to Harry. Your Ministry of Magic sits upon such a convergence. Deep beneath the Department of Mysteries lies the Origin Chamber, where the boundaries between worlds are naturally thin. Harry's brow furrowed. I've never heard of such a place, even as head Auror. Few have. The unspeakables themselves have forgotten its true purpose, thinking it merely a place of strong ambient magic. Morrigan's form began to fade. I've expended too much energy maintaining this manifestation. You must reach the Origin Chamber tonight, during the alignment of Jupiter with your moon. The resonance will create a natural bridge to the celestial reality. The ministry will be guarded, Harry warned. And after Winter's disappearance, the Department of Mysteries will be on high alert. Morrigan smiled faintly as she continued to fade. You once infiltrated the department as a teenager, did you not? Surely the champion of magic can manage it again. With those parting words, she vanished completely. Lyra raised an eyebrow. She has interesting teaching methods. That's one way of putting it. Harry closed the viewing portal with a gesture. We need a plan to get into the most secure section of the ministry without alerting anyone. I thought you were head Auror. Can't you just walk in? To the regular ministry, yes. But the Department of Mysteries operates independently. After what happened with Winters, they'll have locked down access completely. Harry began pacing, thinking aloud. We need a distraction, something to draw security away from level 9. Lyra's eyes lit up. Or we could use your godly powers to simply appear inside. It's not that simple, Harry explained. The ministry has anti-apparition wards, and while I could probably break through them with enough divine power, it would set off every alarm in the building. Then we need an insider, Lyra concluded. Someone who can grant us legitimate access. Harry stopped pacing, a reluctant smile forming. I know exactly who to ask, though she's going to have a lot of questions. Let me get this straight, Hermione Granger said, her voice carefully measured as she sat across from them in her office. You've been chosen by a goddess as her champion, given divine powers to protect multiple magical realities, found yourself she glanced at Lyra, searching for the appropriate term. Ally, Harry supplied quickly. From another reality entirely, and now need access to a secret chamber beneath the Department of Mysteries that even I, as Deputy Head of Magical Law Enforcement, have never heard of? That's the simplified version, yes, Harry confirmed. Hermione's office reflected her methodical nature, bookshelves organized by subject matter, color-coded files, and a charmed calendar that updated itself. Only the photos on her desk, showing her with Ron and their children, or with Harry at various ministry functions, added a personal touch to the otherwise efficient space. She studied Harry intently. "You look different. Your eyes especially." "Side effect of the divine energy," Harry explained, unconsciously touching the corner of his eye where flecks of Morrigan's wild magic now permanently resided. "And you," Hermione turned to Lyra, "are a magical practitioner from a world where magic is based on elemental forces rather than our spell system?" Lyra nodded, allowing her elemental affinities to briefly manifest as swirling colors around her fingertips. "Your world's magic feels constrained to me, channeled through narrow pathways rather than flowing freely." Hermione watched the display with undisguised fascination before her practical nature reasserted itself. "Why come to me? Why not go directly to Minister Shacklebolt?" "Because the Department of Mysteries would immediately be alerted if I requested official access," Harry said. "And because I trust you with the truth, Hermione. We're facing a multiversal threat that makes Voldemort look like a schoolyard bully. I need your help." The mention of Voldemort sobered the room. Hermione tapped her fingers on her desk, considering. "You realize how this sounds," she said finally. "Completely mad," Harry acknowledged. "But when have our lives ever been normal?" A reluctant smile tugged at her lips. "Fair point." She leaned forward. "Show me something. Something that proves what you're claiming." Harry exchanged glances with Lyra, then nodded. He raised his hand palm up, calling forth a fraction of his divine power. Above his hand, a miniature version of the magical multiverse appeared, countless tiny spheres connected by gossamer threads of light, each containing a glimpse of a different magical reality. Hermione rose from her chair, moving around the desk to examine the display more closely. Her analytical mind couldn't dismiss the evidence before her eyes, magic unlike anything in their world's recorded history. "Extraordinary," she breathed, watching realities where dragons soared through crystal spires, where magic manifested as visible auroras, where practitioners shaped reality through song rather than spells. "And all these worlds are in danger." "Along with ours," Harry confirmed, closing his hand and dispelling the image. "The boundaries between realities are weakening. Without intervention, the resulting collapse would end all magic everywhere." Hermione returned to her chair, decision made. "What do you need from me?" "Access to level 9 at approximately 11 p.m. tonight. A distraction that will draw the unspeakables away from the southeast corridor. And your word that this stays between us for now." Hermione considered the request. "I can authorize a surprise security inspection of the time room, that should occupy most of the on-duty staff. And I can provide you with temporary credentials as consultants for my department." She fixed Harry with a serious look. "But I want regular updates, Harry. No disappearing into other dimensions without letting me know you're safe." "Deal," Harry agreed, relief evident in his voice. Having Hermione's support lifted a weight he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. As they finalized details, a silver lynx Patronus materialized in the office, Minister Shacklebolt's messenger. "Hermione," came Kingsley's deep, measured voice, "we have a situation in the atrium. Magical disruption similar to the incident last week. Your presence is requested immediately." The Patronus dissolved, leaving an unsettled silence in its wake. "That can't be a coincidence," Lyra said quietly. "It's not," Harry agreed, standing. "The tapestry is weakening faster than Morrigan anticipated. The effects are starting to bleed into our reality." Hermione grabbed her wand. "I should investigate this." "We'll come with you," Harry insisted. "If it's what I suspect, you'll need our help." The ministry atrium was in chaos when they arrived. The magical ceiling, normally showing peaceful enchanted weather, now displayed fracturing patterns like cracking glass. The fountain of magical brethren had stopped flowing, its water suspended in mid-air as if time itself had hiccuped. Ministry employees and visitors stood in confused clusters as security personnel attempted to establish order. In the center of it all, Kingsley Shacklebolt conferred with a team of unspeakables led by a severe-looking woman Harry recognized as Winter's replacement, unspeakable Celia Hardwicke. Hermione, Kingsley acknowledged as they approached. "Potter, didn't expect to see you here. Thought you were on leave." "I was consulting with Deputy Granger on a related matter," Harry explained smoothly. "These disruptions are connected to the incident I reported last week." Hardwicke's sharp gaze shifted between Harry and Lyra. "And who is this?" "I don't recognize her ministry credentials." "Magical consultant," Hermione interjected before either could respond. "Specialized knowledge in rare magical phenomena." Above them, the fracturing in the enchanted ceiling worsened. A sound like breaking glass echoed through the atrium, though nothing visibly shattered. "Minister," Hardwicke said urgently, "we need to evacuate and seal the building. Our readings suggest this is only the beginning of a cascading magical failure." Harry stepped forward, drawing subtle divine power. To ordinary observation, he appeared merely confident, but those with magical sensitivity, like the unspeakables, would detect something far more significant. "The disruption is centered there," he said, pointing to a spot near the security desk where the air seemed to ripple slightly. "It's a pressure point between realities, not a magical failure." Hardwicke's eyes narrowed. "And how exactly would you know that, Auror Potter?" "Former head Auror," Harry corrected mildly. "And let's just say I've developed expertise in this particular area." The rippling intensified, forming what looked like a heat mirage in the middle of the atrium. Ministry security formed a perimeter around it, wands drawn. "Minister," Harry said quietly to Kingsley, "those spells won't help. In fact, they might make things worse by adding magical pressure to an already unstable point." Kingsley studied him, noting the subtle changes in his former head Auror. "Stand down," he ordered the security team. "Clear the civilians from the atrium." As the space emptied of non-essential personnel, Harry approached the rippling air with Lyra beside him. Hermione followed a few paces behind, her analytical mind already cataloging every detail. "It's not a full tear," Lyra observed, her elemental senses extended. "More like a thinning." Harry nodded. "A warning sign." He extended his hand toward the disturbance, allowing divine energy to flow through him into the weakened point. The rippling calmed slightly under his influence. "Potter, what are you doing?" Hardwicke demanded, stepping forward only to be restrained by Kingsley's hand on her arm. "Stabilizing it," Harry replied without turning. "Lyra, I need your elemental balance." Lyra placed her hand beside his, channeling her powers in harmony with his divine energy. Together, they created a reinforcing pattern that strengthened the boundary between realities. The remaining onlookers watched in stunned silence as the disturbance gradually subsided. The enchanted ceiling repaired itself, the frozen fountain resumed its flow, and the rippling air stilled completely. Harry lowered his hand, turning to face the minister and assembled unspeakables. "That's a temporary fix. These disturbances will continue and worsen unless the underlying cause is addressed." "And what exactly is this underlying cause?" Hardwicke asked skeptically. Before Harry could formulate an appropriately edited response, another disturbance manifested, this one more controlled. A perfect circle of golden light appeared in the air beside them, expanding to form what was clearly a deliberate portal. 3 figures stepped through, robed in midnight blue with silver insignias that depicted a multi-pointed star surrounding an eye. They moved with military precision, flanking a central figure who carried an ornate staff. "Arcanum," Lyra whispered, her elemental energies instinctively rising in defense. The central figure lowered her hood, revealing a striking woman with obsidian skin and eyes of metallic silver that contained no pupils or irises, just reflective surfaces that mirrored the room around her. Her head was shaved, adorned with intricate silver runes that seemed to shift position subtly when not directly observed. "Harry Potter," she said, her voice resonating with unnatural harmonics. "Champion of the fading goddess. Your interference ends now." Ministry security immediately raised their wands, but the woman made a casual gesture with her free hand. Every wand in the atrium, except for Harry's and Lyra's, transformed into harmless wooden sticks. "Who are you?" Kingsley demanded, his natural authority undimmed despite being suddenly disarmed. "Auror Void, Hunter Prime of the Arcanum Collective," she replied without taking her eyes off Harry. "We are reality preservationists. Your world has been designated a primary anchor point in the stabilization protocol." "That sounds less like preservation and more like invasion," Harry observed, subtly positioning himself between the Arcanum members and the Ministry officials. Auror's metallic eyes narrowed. "We expected Morrigan would find herself a champion. She always was sentimental about individual realities." She stepped closer, studying Harry with clinical interest. "But you're newly ascended. Barely controlling the power she's granted you. You cannot hope to challenge the collective's combined knowledge of multiversal mechanics." Harry felt Lyra's tension beside him, ready to unleash elemental fury at his signal. He placed a calming hand on her arm. "If you know who I am, then you know I'm not interested in challenging anyone. I'm interested in protecting innocent people across all realities." "Noble sentiments," Auror said dismissively. "But ultimately misguided. The multiverse is collapsing, Potter. Thousands of realities are already beyond salvation. Our protocols will preserve what can be saved. By sacrificing countless worlds to empower a few," Lyra interjected. "I've seen your extraction methods. You're not preserving magic, you're harvesting it like a resource." Auror's attention shifted to Lyra, her expression hardening. "An elementalist from calibration point 47. You've already begun building your circle, I see." She turned back to Harry. "Your goddess hasn't told you everything, champion. Ask her about the origin cascade. Ask her about her role in destabilizing the tapestry in the first place." Confusion flickered across Harry's face before he mastered it, but not before Auror noticed. "As I suspected," she said with grim satisfaction. "You're fighting blindly for a cause you barely understand." One of her companions leaned in, whispering urgently. Auror nodded. "Our time grows short. Consider this a formal notice, Potter. The Arcanum has designated this reality for preservation as an anchor point. Interference with our stabilization protocols will be considered hostile action against the multiverse itself." She turned to address Kingsley directly. "Minister, your reality has been selected for salvation while others must be sacrificed. Your cooperation would be appreciated but is not required. We have operated across thousands of realities for millennia. Your limited understanding of multiversal mechanics is insufficient." With that parting statement, she raised her staff. The portal reopened behind them, and the Arcanum representative stepped backward through it before anyone could respond. In their wake, they left a stunned silence broken only by Kingsley's measured voice. "Potter," he said with remarkable calm, "I believe you and I need to have a very detailed conversation about exactly what is happening to our world." 3 hours later, Harry and Lyra sat in the minister's private conference room. Kingsley had listened to a carefully edited version of their story, omitting Morrigan's name and the full extent of Harry's divine transformation while emphasizing the multiverse's instability and the Arcanum's destructive methods. Unspeakable Hardwick had been included in the briefing, her initial skepticism gradually giving way to reluctant acknowledgement as Harry demonstrated abilities clearly beyond standard wizardry. "So these pressure points between realities," Kingsley summarized, "they're going to keep appearing with increasing frequency?" "Yes," Harry confirmed. "What happened in the atrium was minor compared to what's coming. And this Arcanum collective believes the solution is to sacrifice other magical worlds to strengthen ours?" Hermione asked, her ethical concerns evident. "Along with a handful of other anchor realities they've selected," Lyra explained. They see it as triage, saving what can be saved at the expense of the rest. Hardwick, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. Winters was investigating something similar, wasn't he? Before his disappearance. Harry met her gaze steadily. Winters found a tear between realities and attempted to extract power from another world. The results were unfortunate. Is he dead? She asked bluntly. Transformed, Harry replied honestly. The human body isn't designed to channel unfiltered magic from multiple realities. Kingsley leaned forward. What do you need from us, Potter? Tonight, I need access to level 9, specifically to a chamber beneath the Department of Mysteries that the Ministry has forgotten exists. Harry glanced at Hardwick. It's called the Origin Chamber. It predates the Ministry itself. Surprise registered on Hardwick's face. The Nexus Room? We've never been able to determine its purpose. It registers extraordinary magical energy but resists all attempts at study. Because it's a natural convergence point between realities, Harry explained. And tonight, during a specific celestial alignment, it will provide a pathway to another reality where we can find help against the Arcanum. Kingsley exchanged glances with Hermione before nodding. Unspeakable Hardwick will provide whatever access you require. His expression grew serious. But I want absolute transparency moving forward, Potter. Our world is apparently at the center of a multiversal crisis. I need to know what we're facing. Understood, Minister. Harry rose from his seat. If all goes well, we'll return with both information and allies. As they prepared to leave, Hermione pulled Harry aside. There's something you're not telling us, she said quietly. Something about your transformation. Ron and I have known you too long not to notice. Harry smiled ruefully. There's a lot I'm not telling you, Hermione. Some of it because I'm still figuring it out myself. She studied his altered eyes. Be careful, Harry. Gods and their champions don't have the best track record in any mythology I've ever studied. I know. He squeezed her hand reassuringly. But when have I ever done things the traditional way? At precisely 10:45 p.m., Harry and Lyra stood in the circular entrance chamber of the Department of Mysteries, accompanied by unspeakable Hardwick. The room's revolving wall had already aligned to their destination, a door that appeared older and more weathered than the others. The Nexus Room, as we call it, Hardwick explained, her professional demeanor firmly in place despite the extraordinary circumstances. It contains a single stone archway on a raised dais. We've never determined its function, though it superficially resembles the Death Chamber's archway. But without the veil, Harry noted, memories of Sirius momentarily surfacing before he pushed them aside. Correct. Just an empty stone arch that occasionally emits pulses of unidentifiable magic. Hardwick consulted her watch. The Luna-Jupiter alignment reaches its peak in approximately 12 minutes. If your theory is correct, that's when the convergence will occur. They proceeded through the door into a circular chamber significantly smaller than the Death Chamber but with similar tiered stone seating surrounding a central dais. Upon the dais stood an archway of rough-hewn stone covered in runes so ancient that even the unspeakables had failed to decipher them. Harry approached it slowly, his divine senses immediately detecting the power thrumming through the structure. This was old magic, older than Hogwarts, older than the Ministry, perhaps older than wizardkind itself. Can you feel it? He asked Lyra. She nodded, her elemental affinities responding visibly to the archway's energy. It's like a heartbeat. A pulse connecting multiple realities. Hardwick watched them with barely concealed fascination. Our instruments detect energy fluctuations, but nothing as specific as what you're describing. Harry placed his palm against the archway's stone, connecting with its ancient magic. Images flashed through his mind, the archway being constructed by druids during a time when the boundaries between worlds were commonly crossed, wizards of ancient civilizations using it as a meeting point with magical beings from other realities, the knowledge of its true purpose gradually fading as wizard kind turned inward, focusing on their own reality to the exclusion of others. This was built as a bridge, Harry said, removing his hand. A consensual connecting point rather than a tear. Precisely, came Morrigan's voice as she materialized beside the archway, her form more transparent than usual. One of many constructed across the multiverse during the Age of Convergence, when magical beings understood the interconnected nature of all realities. Hardwick stumbled back in shock. What, who are you? Someone who was old when your ministry was young, Morrigan replied cryptically. Her attention focused on Harry. The alignment approaches. You must be ready to cross exactly at the moment of convergence. Harry nodded, turning to Hardwick. You should step back. We don't know exactly what will happen when the portal activates. The unspeakable hesitated only briefly before retreating to the chamber entrance, her researcher's instinct to observe overwhelming her caution. What should we expect on the other side? Lyra asked, checking her elemental reserves. A world where magic flows from celestial bodies rather than from within practitioners, Morrigan explained. Star mages who draw power directly from constellations, lunar priests who channel the three moons' energies, solar architects who build structures to amplify and direct stellar magic. And the Arcanum is already there, Harry guessed. Yes. They've identified the astral conclave as that reality's primary magical nexus. Their extraction devices are likely already in place. The archway began to emit a soft blue glow as the alignment approached. Morrigan's form grew fainter. I cannot maintain this manifestation much longer, nor can I follow you through the portal, she warned. The Arcanum has placed wards specifically designed to repel my essence throughout that reality. You must find Orion, he can lead you to the Conclave's inner sanctum where the chalice of convergence was hidden centuries ago. The chalice? Harry's eyes widened. One of the artifacts you mentioned is there. Yes. The Arcanum doesn't know of its existence yet, but they will soon sense its energy as their extraction progresses. Morrigan's form flickered like a failing light. Harry, be wary. The Arcanum's Hunter Prime speaks some truth. There are aspects of this conflict I have not yet revealed. Before Harry could question this disturbing admission, the archway flared with blinding light. Morrigan vanished completely as the space within the arch transformed into a swirling portal of stellar energy. Now! Lyra urged, grabbing Harry's hand. Together they stepped through the archway, experiencing a sensation like falling through stars. Colors beyond normal perception streaked past them as reality itself seemed to fold and unfold around their bodies. They emerged onto a crystalline platform overlooking a breathtaking cityscape. Spires of what appeared to be solidified starlight rose hundreds of feet into the air. 3 moons, amber, blue, and violet, hung low in the sky, their combined light casting multicolored shadows across the gleaming architecture. The entire city seemed built to capture and channel celestial light, with buildings designed as massive magical prisms and lenses. The astral conclave, Lyra breathed, taking in the spectacular sight. Harry turned to ensure the portal remained stable behind them, but it had already closed, leaving only a small rune etched into the crystal platform, a marker for their return point. We'll need to find a way to reactivate it when we're ready to leave, he noted. Assuming we survive long enough to worry about leaving, Lyra replied tensely. Harry followed her gaze to see a group of figures approaching along an elevated walkway, guards wearing armor that appeared to be crafted from captured starlight. Their helmets featured visors shaped like constellations, and each carried a staff topped with a different celestial symbol. Boundary breach detected, announced the lead guard, his staff leveled at them. Identify yourselves, reality crossers, or face immediate nullification. Harry raised his hands slowly, signaling Lyra to do the same. My name is Harry Potter. This is Lyra Solstice. We've come seeking audience with the Star Mage Orion regarding the Arcanum Collective's presence in your city. The guards exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable behind their constellation visors. More outsiders claiming crisis, one muttered. Protocol dictates detention and assessment, the leader decided. You will surrender any focal objects and accompany us to the lunar holding chamber for identity verification. Harry considered their options. They could likely overcome these guards with their combined powers, but that would hardly help their mission to gain allies. Better to comply, for now. We'll cooperate, he agreed, but our mission is time-sensitive. The Arcanum poses an imminent threat to your entire reality. The stellar researchers are honored guests of the conclave, the lead guard replied stiffly. Their extraction technology has been approved by the Celestial Council for limited energy transfer studies. Stellar researchers? Lyra repeated incredulously. Is that what they're calling themselves here? You will refrain from disparaging authorized visitors, the guard warned. Now, your focal objects, please. Harry surrendered his wand, though he knew his divine power remained accessible regardless. Lyra handed over her elemental focus, a crystal she'd crafted since arriving in Harry's reality to help channel her abilities more precisely in his world's magical frequency. They were escorted along crystalline walkways that seemed to shift and realign as they walked, responding to the guard's stellar insignias. Citizens of the conclave stopped to stare at the strangers, people with skin tones ranging from deep space black to nebula purple, all with eyes that contained miniature star fields instead of irises. The lunar holding chamber proved to be less a prison and more a secure reception area, a circular room with walls that displayed real-time images of the three moons' surfaces. Comfortable seating adjusted itself to visitors' body types, and a central table offered refreshments that materialized based on detected preferences. Sophisticated hospitality for a detention center, Harry observed after the guards had left them alone. This entire reality seems more harmonious than either of ours, Lyra agreed, examining a wall display showing the current positions of major constellations. Their magic is built into their architecture, their city planning, even their governance. Harry approached the refreshment table, where a cup of tea identical to what he preferred at home had appeared. Which makes the Arcanum's deception here particularly dangerous. They're exploiting that harmony and trust. Before Lyra could respond, a new figure entered the chamber, a tall man with midnight blue skin and a constellation of actual stars embedded in his flesh like luminous freckles across his face and exposed arms. His eyes contained swirling galaxies, and his close-cropped hair seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. He wore robes of deep indigo with silver astronomical symbols embroidered along the edges. I am Astronomer First Class Helix, he introduced himself formally. I understand you claim knowledge of our stellar research guests. Harry set down his untouched tea. We know them as the Arcanum Collective. They're not researchers, they're harvesters who drain magical worlds of their power to strengthen selected realities. Helix's galaxy eyes narrowed. A significant accusation. The researchers have provided our conclave with valuable insights into multiversal energy transfer. Their extraction devices have been certified safe by our own stellar cartographers. Because they've calibrated the extraction rate to appear benign during initial testing, Lyra explained. My world detected no problems either, until they accelerated the process and nearly collapsed our elemental nexus. Helix appeared troubled but not convinced. What evidence do you offer beyond your claims? Harry made a quick decision. I can show you what happened to another world they've researched. He extended his hand. With your permission. After a moment's hesitation, Helix nodded. Harry placed his fingers lightly against the astronomer's temple, channeling a controlled measure of divine power to share the memory of Lyra's world's elemental disruption and near collapse. Helix gasped, stumbling backward when the vision ended. By the three moons, he whispered. If this is true. It is, Harry assured him. And there's more. We need to speak with a star mage named Orion. He's in danger from the Arcanum. The name triggered visible recognition. Orion is, not currently in favor with the Celestial Council. His warnings about the researchers were dismissed as paranoid conspiracy theories. Helix looked genuinely conflicted. He was placed under observation restriction after attempting to sabotage one of the extraction devices. Then he's already figured out what they're really doing, Lyra said. We need to see him immediately. That would violate council directives, Helix hedged. And yet. He gazed at one of the lunar displays, seemingly coming to a decision. I cannot officially assist you. However, if you were to escape during the violet moon ascension when our security systems recalibrate, and if you were to find your way to the lower observatory in the southern quadrant. He left the implication hanging. Harry nodded understanding. How long until this ascension? 17 minutes, Helix replied, moving toward the exit. I must report your processing delay. The automatic systems will be offline for approximately 40 seconds during recalibration. After he departed, Harry and Lyra quickly developed their plan. When the chamber's subtle illumination shifted to a violet hue, indicating the ascension of the smallest moon, they felt the magical energies around them fluctuate momentarily. The door's locking mechanism deactivated with a soft click. They slipped into the corridor, where Harry used a fraction of divine power to blur their presence from casual observation. Following Helix's implied directions, they navigated downward through crystalline passages that grew progressively less ornate. The lower observatory proved to be a neglected facility in the city's older section. Unlike the grand, pristine structures above, this area showed signs of age and minimal maintenance. The observatory itself was a dome of clouded crystal housing outdated stellar observation equipment. Inside, surrounded by star charts and disassembled devices, they found him, Orion, the star mage from Harry's visions. In person, he presented a striking figure, tall and lean with skin that literally contained captured starlight, pulsing beneath the surface in patterns matching the major constellations. Unlike other conclave citizens, his eyes weren't galaxy fields but rather intense points of white light, like twin stars burning with barely contained energy. He looked up from his work, immediately dropping into a defensive stance when he spotted them. Arcanum assassins, he demanded, stellar energy gathering around his hands. The opposite, Harry replied calmly. We're here about the Arcanum's true purpose. And we know you've already discovered it yourself. Orion didn't relax his defensive posture. Prove you're not with them. Instead of words, Harry opted for demonstration. He called forth his divine aura, allowing the multiversal energy Morrigan had granted him to manifest visibly, a corona of power that contained echoes of countless magical realities. Orion's stellar eyes widened. God touched, he whispered. But not Arcanum aligned. Their energy signatures carry corruption markers. He lowered his hands, the stellar energy dissipating. Who sent you? Morrigan, the goddess of magic, Lyra answered. The Arcanum were once her servants before they broke away, believing their approach to saving the multiverse was superior to hers. Orion's expression darkened. Their approach involves draining my world's stellar magic to empower their precious anchor realities. He gestured to disassembled components spread across his workbench. I managed to sabotage one of their extraction devices before the council declared me unstable. Fools were too dazzled by promises of multiversal knowledge to see their being harvested. The council still doesn't believe you? Harry asked. The Arcanum's leader here, a woman with mirror eyes, has thoroughly charmed them. Provided technical advancements, offered cultural exchange. His mouth twisted bitterly. Meanwhile, they've placed extraction points at every major stellar convergence in the conclave. Elara Void, Harry confirmed. We've encountered her. She's the Arcanum's Hunter Prime. She's here? Lyra asked, alarmed. In this reality? Not currently, Orion replied. She established their operation, then departed through one of their portals 3 cycles ago. Left her subordinates to continue the research while she hunts something called a convergence artifact. Harry and Lyra exchanged significant glances. The chalice, Harry said. Morrigan mentioned it was hidden somewhere in your reality. Orion's star eyes flared with sudden intensity. The lunar chalice? That's not just a religious relic. He moved to a cluttered bookshelf, pulling down an ancient stellar map.
It's kept in the trilunar temple at the exact center of the conclave, a cup that supposedly contains the essence of all three moons. He unrolled the map on his workbench, revealing the conclave's detailed layout. For generations, it was thought merely ceremonial, used during lunar alignments to symbolize the harmony of celestial forces. But recently, since the Arcanum's arrival, it's begun to glow with increasing intensity. It's responding to the weakening boundaries between realities, Harry explained, examining the map. Morrigan described 3 artifacts created to maintain multiversal balance: the scepter, the chalice, and the codex. Together, they could repair the damage to the magical tapestry. Orion studied them both carefully. "And you expect me to help you take our sacred relic?" "We expect you to help us prevent the Arcanum from draining your entire reality of its magic," Lyra countered. "The chalice is part of a system designed to maintain the multiverse's stability, not the exclusive property of any one reality." Harry felt the familiar resonance beginning between his divine energy and Orion's stellar magic, the same harmonic recognition he'd experienced with Lyra. From Orion's sudden focused attention, the Star Mage felt it too. "What is that?" Orion demanded, a hand unconsciously moving to his chest where the resonance was strongest. "You're a Nexus soul," Harry explained. "Like Lyra and myself. Souls capable of channeling and stabilizing multiversal energy. It's why Morrigan guided us to you specifically." Orion stepped back, visibly processing this information. "The stellar anomalies I've been experiencing since childhood, the ability to connect with stars beyond our celestial sphere, this explains it." He looked up sharply. "The Arcanum would know this about me. Is that why they've been monitoring me so closely?" "Possibly," Harry acknowledged. "Nexus souls threaten their controlled approach to multiversal stabilization. They'd either want to eliminate you or somehow harness your ability." A distant alarm began sounding, echoing even to their remote location. "Our escape has been discovered," Lyra guessed. Orion moved quickly to a concealed panel, activating an observation crystal that showed conclave security forces mobilizing. Worse. The Arcanum extraction devices have entered final phase. They're accelerating power drainage from all major stellar convergence points simultaneously. The observatory trembled as a wave of magical disturbance passed through the city. Outside, the 3 moons visibly dimmed, their light flickering unnaturally. "They're moving faster than I anticipated," Harry said grimly. "We need to secure the chalice before they realize its significance and reach the temple." Orion hesitated only briefly before nodding decisively. "I have a concealed passage that leads to the central district. We can reach the trilunar temple while security is focused on the convergence points." As they prepared to leave, Harry noticed the star charts on Orion's walls, detailed mappings of constellations both familiar and alien to him. One particular chart drew his attention, a plotting of stellar movements that seemed to predict catastrophic alignment. "What's this?" he asked, pointing to the ominous configuration. Orion glanced at it, expression grim. "My research before the Arcanum arrived. I discovered a pattern, a stellar convergence occurring once every 27,000 years that drastically thins the boundaries between realities. According to my calculations, we're approaching such a convergence now." "The astral syzygy," Lyra whispered in recognition. "My world's elemental prophecies mention it, when stars align to either rebuild or destroy the foundations of magic." The Arcanum isn't causing the weakening, Harry realized. They're exploiting a natural cyclical event, harvesting vulnerable realities during a time when the multiverse is already destabilizing. Which means stopping them is only part of the solution, Orion concluded. The syzygy itself must be properly channeled, or realities will collapse regardless of the Arcanum's actions. Another tremor shook the observatory, stronger than the first. Outside, the ambient light dimmed further as the moons continued to lose luminosity. "Explanations later," Lyra urged. "We need to move now." Orion activated a hidden mechanism, revealing a passage behind a stellar observation array. "This way. And prepare yourselves,"
if the Arcanum has indeed entered final extraction phase, the conclave will soon be in chaos. They descended through the secret passage into ancient maintenance tunnels beneath the city. Orion led confidently, his natural stellar luminescence providing light in the otherwise dark corridors. Unlike the pristine crystal architecture above, these tunnels were carved from actual stone, evidence of the conclave's distant past before stellar magic had advanced to its current sophistication. These tunnels predate the conclave itself, Orion explained as they navigated the labyrinthine passages. Built during the first stellar age when our ancestors were still learning to harness celestial energy. The tunnels periodically shook as extraction-related disturbances propagated through the city above. Each tremor seemed stronger than the last. "How much time do we have?" Harry asked, steadying himself against a wall during a particularly violent shake. "Hours at most," Orion replied grimly. "Once they've drained the primary convergence points, they'll move to secondary systems, then directly to our moons themselves." "And when the moons are drained?" Lyra pressed. "Stellar magic fails completely. Our entire civilization collapses." Orion's face was illuminated eerily by his own internal starlight. Generations of knowledge, unique magical innovations, all harvested to strengthen some distant anchor reality deemed more worthy of survival. They emerged from the tunnels into a maintenance access way beneath the central district. Above them, through crystal viewports, they could see the underside of massive public plazas now filled with panicked citizens. Conclave security forces attempted to maintain order while simultaneously responding to system failures throughout the city. "The Trilunar Temple is directly above," Orion said, pointing to a structure situated at the precise center point between pathways representing the three moons' orbits. During normal circumstances, it would be heavily guarded. Now. He gestured to the chaos above. "Their attention is divided," Harry nodded understanding. "How do we access it?" Orion led them to a ceremonial lift designed for temple attendants. "My stellar signature still has access privileges. They never formally revoked my status as astronomer second class." The lift responded to his stellar energy, activating with a soft hum despite the power fluctuations affecting the rest of the city. As they ascended toward the temple, the full scale of the crisis became apparent through the lift's transparent walls. The conclave was in the early stages of magical collapse. Buildings that should have gleamed with captured starlight now stood dull and lifeless. Floating platforms designed to navigate the city's vertical layout faltered mid-air, their levitation failing. Most alarmingly, the three moons had dimmed to a fraction of their normal brilliance, their usual vibrant colors faded to ghostly imitations. "Just like my world when the elemental nexus was compromised," Lyra observed quietly. The lift delivered them to a small antechamber behind the main temple sanctuary. Orion pressed his palm to a recognition plate, overriding security protocols with a complex stellar energy pattern. "They'll have sensors monitoring the chalice," he warned. "Once we approach it, both Conclave security and Arcanum agents will be alerted." "Let them come," Harry said, divine energy already gathering around him in preparation. "We'll deal with whatever response they mount." The Trilunar Temple's interior was a breathtaking demonstration of celestial architectural precision. The domed ceiling featured a perfect replica of the night sky, normally animated with the actual movements of stars and planets but now ominously static due to power failures. Three grand pathways representing the moon's orbits converged at the center, where a raised dais supported a simple pedestal. Upon the pedestal rested the lunar chalice, a cup seemingly carved from moonglow itself, constantly shifting between the three lunar colors of amber, blue, and violet. Despite the magical disruptions affecting the city, the chalice radiated undimmed power. "There it is," Orion breathed reverently. "Our most sacred relic." Harry approached slowly, his divine senses evaluating the chalice. "It's definitely one of the convergence artifacts. I can feel Morrigan's energy signature within its construction." As they reached the central dais, a voice rang out from the temple entrance. "That's quite far enough." They turned to find 6 Arcanum operatives entering in formation,
led by a man with mechanical enhancements visible along his jawline and temples, magical technology far beyond anything in Harry's reality. Unlike Alara's silver mirror eyes, his were modified to resemble astronomical instruments, constantly calculating and measuring magical outputs. Archon Helix, Orion identified him with evident disgust. The Arcanum's extraction specialist. Star Mage Orion, the Archon replied coolly. Your interference has been most inconvenient, though ultimately futile. His calculating gaze shifted to Harry and Lyra. Morrigan's new champion, I presume, along with the first of your circle. Alara warned you might appear. Harry stepped forward, positioning himself between the Arcanum group and the Chalice. Your extraction process is destroying this reality. Thousands will die when stellar magic fails completely. Unfortunate but necessary casualties in the greater work of multiversal preservation, Helix responded without emotion. This reality was always marked for harvest rather than preservation. Its unique stellar magic will strengthen 3 anchor points significantly. There's another way, Lyra argued. The convergence artifacts can stabilize the multiverse without sacrificing entire realities. Helix's mechanical eyes whirred as they adjusted focus. Ah, the goddess's solution. Theoretically elegant but practically unattainable. You would need all 3 artifacts, properly aligned, during the peak of the astral syzygy. He gestured dismissively. We've calculated the probabilities. The codex remains lost to the void between realities. The scepter is secure in our possession. And now the Chalice will join it. At his signal, the Arcanum operatives deployed a containment field that expanded rapidly toward the dais. Harry reacted instinctively, channeling divine power into a counterbarrier that momentarily halted the field's advance. The collision of opposing magical forces sent resonant energy cascading through the temple, cracking crystal columns and shattering illumination arrays. Lyra, secure the Chalice, Harry ordered, maintaining his barrier against increasing pressure. Orion, we'll need a way out once we have it. Lyra darted toward the pedestal while Orion began tracing complex stellar patterns in the air, establishing coordinates for emergency teleportation. Archon Helix calmly adjusted settings on a device at his wrist. The containment field intensified, now pushing Harry's divine barrier backward inch by inch despite his considerable power. Your goddess has made you powerful, champion, but power without technical precision is merely brute force, Helix observed clinically. The Arcanum has spent millennia perfecting the science of multiversal manipulation. Harry felt the strain of maintaining his barrier against their specialized equipment. Unlike Alara Void, who had wielded quasi-divine power herself, Helix relied on mechanized magical technology, less immediately powerful but methodically efficient. Behind him, Lyra reached the Chalice. The moment her hands closed around it, the artifact pulsed with brilliant light, responding to her Nexus soul. The 3 moons visible through the temple's skylights momentarily brightened, their energies connecting directly to the Chalice. No! Helix shouted, genuine alarm breaking through his calculated demeanor. He diverted additional power to the containment field, forcing Harry to his knees as the barrier compressed. Harry! Lyra called out in concern, the Chalice clutched against her chest. Complete the teleportation sequence, Harry grunted to Orion, divine power flaring around him as he fought to maintain the barrier. Get the Chalice out of here, that's what matters. Orion's stellar magic reached its peak as he finalized the emergency coordinates. Ready on your mark. Harry knew he couldn't maintain the barrier much longer against the Arcanum's specialized containment technology. Instead of continuing the futile defense, he shifted tactics completely, converting his barrier into a pulse of divine energy that exploded outward. The unexpected change shattered the Arcanum's containment field and sent their operatives sprawling backward. Helix alone remained standing, protected by personal shields, but the disruption bought precious seconds. Now! Harry shouted, leaping back to join Lyra and Orion on the dais. Orion slammed his palm down on the completed stellar pattern.
Teleportation energy enveloped them just as Helix fired a nullification beam that passed through the space they had occupied a microsecond too late. The teleportation felt different from any magical transportation Harry had experienced, more like becoming pure stellar energy, traveling at light speed through celestial pathways before rematerializing. They appeared on an observation platform atop one of the Conclave's highest spires, the entire city spread out beneath them in a panorama of failing magical systems. That won't hold them long, Orion warned, already working to obscure their stellar signature. Arcanum tracking technology is designed specifically to follow teleportation energy. Lyra held up the chalice, which continued to pulse with trilunar energy. What exactly does this do? How does it help stabilize realities? According to our oldest texts, it harmonizes disparate magical frequencies, Orion explained while maintaining his obscurement field. Where the tapestry is torn, it can reweave connections between magical systems that would otherwise be incompatible. Harry studied the cityscape below, noting the systematic pattern of magical failures spreading outward from major convergence points. The extraction devices, where's the central control point? Orion pointed to a massive structure near the city's edge, a tower topped with 3 synchronized rings continuously rotating around a central sphere of harvested energy. The primary collection nexus. All extracted stellar magic is routed there before being transferred to their anchor realities. Harry's expression hardened with determination. Then that's where we're going next. What? Lyra looked at him in disbelief. We have the chalice. We should return to your reality immediately, before the Arcanum can regroup. And leave this entire world to collapse. Harry shook his head firmly. We can use the chalice to reverse the extraction process, return the harvested energy to its proper place in the stellar system. Orion's star eyes widened. Theoretically possible, but incredibly dangerous. The Arcanum's collection system is designed with multiple failsafes against interference. Do you have a better solution? Harry challenged. How long before stellar magic fails completely? Orion glanced at the 3 dimming moons. At the current extraction rate, less than 3 hours until irreversible system collapse. Then we have no choice, Harry said with finality. We need to try. Lyra studied him for a moment before nodding her agreement. How do we approach the collection nexus? It will be their most heavily defended installation. Directly, Harry said, divine determination settling over him. They'll expect subterfuge, not a frontal assault. That's either brilliant or suicidal, Orion observed dryly. I've been told there's often little difference, Harry replied with a grim smile. But first, we need to understand exactly what we're facing. Can you access their extraction schematics? You mentioned studying a disabled device. Orion hesitated, then reached into a hidden pocket of his robes, extracting a small crystalline data storage device. I didn't just disable one of their extractors, I copied its operational protocols before the Council confiscated my research. The data crystal projected a detailed holographic schematic of the Arcanum's extraction technology, a system designed to identify, isolate, and transfer specific magical frequencies from one reality to another. The collection nexus uses these same principles scaled up exponentially, Orion explained, highlighting key components in the projection. Frequency isolation here, vibrational conversion here, and multiversal transfer through this conduit. Harry studied the schematics intently, his experience as an Auror helping him identify security vulnerabilities. The transfer conduit is their weakest point. If we could reverse its polarity while simultaneously using the chalice to harmonize the extracted magic with its original frequency, we could force the system to return what it's taken, Lyra finished, her own experience with elemental systems providing insight. But we'd need to be at the central control array to make those adjustments. And that will be inside their most secure area, Orion added. Past multiple security layers designed specifically to repel magical intruders. Harry's divine power stirred within him, responding to the challenge. Their security is designed to counter standard magical approaches, not divine intervention.
And certainly not a combination of divine power, elemental magic, and stellar manipulation working in concert. A tremor stronger than previous ones shook the observation platform. Below, entire sections of the city went dark as stellar power failed. The amber moon flickered alarmingly, momentarily disappearing before reappearing at diminished luminosity. "We're running out of time," Harry said, straightening with resolve. "Orion, can you teleport us directly to the collection nexus?" The Star Mage nodded reluctantly. "Not inside their security perimeter, but close enough for an approach. Though without knowing their current alert status, we'll have to adapt as we go," Harry interrupted. "It's what I do best." As Orion began calculating the teleportation coordinates, Lyra moved closer to Harry. "This is more than just securing the chalice now," she observed quietly. "You're taking responsibility for an entire reality." Harry's expression was solemn. "I can't just take what we need and leave these people to die. That would make us no better than the Arcanum. And that's why Morrigan chose you," Lyra realized. "Not just for your magical potential or Nexus soul, but for this, the refusal to sacrifice others for the greater good." The observation gave Harry pause. Was that truly why he'd been selected? Not for his power or experience, but for his fundamental approach to ethical dilemmas? Before he could pursue the thought further, Orion completed his calculations. "Ready. But be warned, we'll appear at the outer edge of their awareness field. We'll have seconds at most before they detect our presence." Harry nodded to Lyra, who held the chalice securely against her body. "On 3. 1, 2, the teleportation activated, once again converting them to stellar energy that streaked across the darkening city toward the collection nexus. They rematerialized on a maintenance platform attached to the massive structure's exterior, providing a dizzying view of both the nexus itself and the failing city beyond. Up close, the collection nexus was even more imposing, a triumph of magical engineering designed for a terrible purpose. The 3 rotating rings channeled harvested stellar magic into the central sphere, which pulsed with the combined energy of countless drained convergence points. Conduits radiated outward like spokes, connecting to extraction points throughout the conclave. Alarm systems activated the instant they materialized, bathing the platform in harsh red light. "So much for the element of surprise," Orion muttered, immediately establishing a stellar shield as security drones deployed from hidden compartments. Harry didn't waste time on elaborate spellwork. Instead, he channeled divine energy in its purest form, raw power that overwhelmed the drone's sensory systems and sent them plummeting into the depths below. "The control center will be at the sphere's base," Orion directed, pointing to a heavily fortified section where the conduits converged. They fought their way inward, facing increasingly sophisticated defensive measures. Arcanum operatives coordinated with automated systems in a layered defense designed to exhaust magical resources. Under normal circumstances, even powerful mages would eventually tire against such sustained opposition. But Harry wasn't merely a wizard anymore. The divine energy Morrigan had granted him didn't deplete like ordinary magic. Instead, it seemed to grow stronger the more he called upon it, responding to the righteousness of their cause. Lyra's elemental powers complemented his perfectly, her ability to manipulate fundamental forces creating openings in the Arcanum's defenses that Harry could then exploit. Orion, fighting for his world's survival, demonstrated why he'd been considered dangerous enough to suppress, his stellar manipulation allowing him to temporarily blind detection systems and redirect security forces away from their actual position. They reached the central sphere's access corridor just as Archon Helix arrived with elite Arcanum Guardians, operatives whose bodies had been extensively modified with magical technology designed specifically for combat. Impressive persistence, Helix acknowledged, his mechanical eyes recalibrating to assess their condition. But ultimately futile. The extraction has progressed beyond the point of reversal. In approximately 42 minutes, this reality's stellar magic will be completely harvested. "You're wrong," Harry countered, divine energy radiating from him in visible waves. "The chalice can restore what you've taken." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Helix's calculated demeanor.
The chalice is a stabilization tool, not a restoration mechanism. Its function is to harmonize, not reverse established energy transfers. You underestimate artifacts of divine origin, Lyra said, raising the chalice which pulsed in response to the nearby harvested energy. They adapt to necessity. Harry could feel the chalice's resonance with his own divine power growing stronger. Morrigan had created these artifacts as tools of balance and preservation, their true capabilities likely exceeded even what the Arcanum understood. Enough debate, Helix decided, signaling his guardians. Secure the artifact. Eliminate the interference. The guardians attacked with perfectly synchronized efficiency, each employing different tactical approaches simultaneously. Their enhanced bodies moved with unnatural speed, targeting vulnerabilities with precision. Harry met them head-on, divine power augmenting his natural combat abilities. He'd faced Death Eaters, magical creatures, and dark wizards throughout his life, experiences that had honed his battle instincts to near-prescient levels. Combined with Morrigan's blessing, he moved like something beyond human, anticipating attacks before they fully formed. Lyra provided covering support, her elemental manipulations disrupting the Guardian's enhanced systems. Water elemental energy short-circuited mechanical components, while earth energy temporarily solidified mobility hydraulics. Orion focused on Helix directly, stellar mage versus extraction specialist in a battle of technical precision. Where Helix employed calculated, scientific applications of magical energy, Orion responded with intuitive stellar manipulations that defied predictive algorithms. The control array, Harry shouted to Lyra during a momentary break in the assault. We need to reach it now. She nodded understanding, using a powerful wind elemental surge to clear a path through the remaining guardians. Harry followed immediately, divine shield expanding to protect them both as they raced toward the central controls. Orion maintained his engagement with Helix, preventing the Archon from intercepting them. Go. I'll keep him occupied. The control array proved to be a semicircular console surrounding a direct interface with the harvested energy sphere. Arcanum technicians abandoned their stations as Harry and Lyra approached, awareness of their own limitations against divine power overriding loyalty to their mission. Lyra immediately placed the chalice at the center of the array, where it began to resonate with the harvested energy. It's responding to the stolen magic, she observed. Recognizing its proper frequency. Harry examined the control systems, divine perception allowing him to understand their complex functions despite their alien design. We need to reverse the extraction conduits while simultaneously opening a feedback channel through the chalice. The system will resist, Lyra warned, already working to override security protocols. It's designed with multiple failsafes against reverse flow. Behind them, the battle between Orion and Helix intensified. The Archon had deployed additional enhancements, mechanical components extending from his body to form weapon arrays and defensive barriers. Orion countered with increasingly elaborate stellar manipulations, drawing power directly from the stars visible through the facility's transparent ceiling despite the overall dimming of celestial magic. Hurry! Orion called out, visibly straining against Helix's technological advantages. The amber moon is approaching critical depletion. Harry located the primary flow control mechanisms and began the process of reversing the extraction directionality. As predicted, automated failsafes activated immediately, attempting to lock down the system. Lyra, channel your elemental energy through the chalice, Harry directed, divine power flowing from his hands into the control array. I'll force the conduits open. Together, they created a harmonic resonance between divine power, elemental magic, and the chalice's unique properties. The artifact began to glow with increasing intensity, each pulse sending ripples through the harvested energy sphere. No! Helix shouted, disengaging from his battle with Orion to lunge toward the controls. You'll destabilize the entire collection network. That's exactly the point, Harry replied grimly, maintaining his focus on the reversal process. The chalice's glow intensified to near-blinding levels as it established connection with the extracted stellar magic. For a moment, everything seemed balanced on a knife's edge,
the Arcanum's technology fighting against their combined efforts to force reversal. Then, with a sound like crystals singing at its resonant frequency, the chalice fully activated. The harvested energy sphere pulsed once, twice, and began to drain rapidly, its contents flowing back through the reversed conduits toward their original sources throughout the conclave. Outside, the three moons suddenly flared with renewed luminosity. Throughout the city, stellar systems reactivated as their power source returned. The collection nexus itself began to destabilize, its structure designed to channel energy in only one direction now fighting against the reversed flow. "It's working!" Lyra exclaimed, maintaining her elemental connection to the chalice. Helix stared in disbelief as his carefully engineered system collapsed around him. "Impossible. The calculations, the fail-safes." "Some things transcend your calculations, Archon," Harry replied, divine power still flowing through him into the reversal process. "The multiverse isn't a machine to be optimized, it's a living system seeking balance." The Arcanum's remaining operatives began emergency evacuation procedures as structural integrity alarms blared throughout the facility. Extraction devices across the conclave deactivated or overloaded as their collection networks received the returned energy. "We need to leave," Orion urged, rejoining them at the control array. "Once the reversal completes, this entire structure will collapse." Helix made one final, desperate attempt to stop them, deploying a reality anchor designed to prevent interdimensional travel within its radius. "You won't escape with the artifact," he snarled, all calculated composure abandoned. "If this reality recovers, the collective will simply return with greater force." Harry recognized the threat immediately. They needed to not only escape but ensure the conclave could defend itself against future Arcanum harvesting attempts. "Orion," he called out, divine inspiration guiding his next decision, "can you use the returned stellar energy to create a reality shield around the conclave? Something that would prevent unauthorized dimensional breaches?" The Star Mage's eyes widened with understanding. "With the chalice as a focal point, temporarily, yes. A stellar frequency barrier that would allow your divine signature but reject Arcanum vibrations." "Do it," Harry ordered, turning to face Helix directly. "We'll handle the Archon." Orion began an elaborate stellar invocation, using the chalice's harmonizing properties to attune the returning stellar magic to a specific protective frequency. As the last of the harvested energy left the collection sphere, he channeled it into a new configuration, a dome of stellar magic expanding outward from the chalice to encompass the entire conclave. Helix, recognizing the threat to Arcanum operations, abandoned all pretense of calculated analysis. Mechanical components erupted from his body in chaotic profusion, transforming him into something more weapon than man. "The collective has sacrificed too much to accept failure," he raged, launching a barrage of attacks against Harry and Lyra. Thousands of realities harvested, millions of magical signatures catalogued and preserved. Your goddess would let them all perish for the sake of autonomy. Harry met the assault with divine shields while Lyra countered with precisely targeted elemental strikes against the Archon's mechanical systems. "There's a difference between preservation and subjugation," Harry replied, advancing steadily against Helix's increasingly desperate attacks. "Morrigan seeks to maintain the diversity of magical systems, not consolidate them under control of a few." The facility shuddered violently as the reversal process completed. Stellar energy now flowed properly throughout the conclave once more, restoring systems and stabilizing the three moons. Orion's reality shield expanded to full coverage, its protective frequency rejecting Arcanum vibrations. Helix's communication systems suddenly activated, an emergency transmission cutting through his rage. Illyra Void's commanding voice echoed from his mechanical implants, "Extraction team, emergency recall activated. Reality shield detected. Abandon harvesting operations immediately." Around them, the remaining Arcanum operatives began disappearing through hastily established extraction portals, emergency exits that wouldn't remain viable for long once the reality shield fully stabilized. Helix hesitated, clearly torn between continuing his attack and obeying the recall order. Self-preservation finally won out.
This isn't over, champion, he promised, mechanical components retracting as he activated his personal extraction device. The collective spans thousands of realities. We will find another way. As he disappeared through his portal, the collection nexus began its final structural collapse. Orion completed the reality shield configuration, the chalice pulsing one final time before returning to its normal luminosity. We need to leave now, he shouted over the sound of failing support systems. Harry grabbed the chalice, securing it within a divine barrier. Back to the origin chamber in my reality. Can you establish a direct stellar path? Orion nodded, already tracing the necessary coordinates. The resonance pathway you used to reach our reality, I can reverse it precisely. As the facility crumbled around them, Orion completed the stellar teleportation sequence. Light enveloped them, transforming their physical forms into pure stellar energy that streaked away from the collapsing nexus, through the now protected conclave, and into the pathways between realities. They rematerialized exactly where they had started, the origin chamber beneath the Department of Mysteries, now with the addition of one star mage and one ancient artifact. Unspeakable Hardwick stood exactly where they had left her, though her expression suggested considerable time had passed from her perspective. 3 hours, she said by way of greeting. I was beginning to wonder if you'd return at all. Harry, still holding the chalice within its protective barrier, felt the exhaustion of their ordeal catching up with him. We were successful. Both in securing the artifact and in saving an entire reality from magical collapse. Hardwick's gaze fixed on Orion with undisguised fascination. Another visitor from beyond our reality, I see. Orion of the Astral Conclave, the Star Mage introduced himself with formal dignity despite his battle-worn appearance. Stellar mathematician and, apparently, Nexus soul. Before further explanations could be offered, Morrigan materialized beside the ancient archway, her form stronger and more substantial than during their last encounter. Well done, my champion, she said, genuine pride evident in her voice. You've secured the chalice and established the second bond of your divine circle. Hardwick stumbled backward in shock at the goddess's appearance, reflexively drawing her wand before realizing its likely ineffectiveness against such a being. Harry carefully transferred the chalice to Morrigan, who received it with reverent hands. The arcanum nearly drained an entire reality of its magical essence. We managed to reverse the process, but they'll try again elsewhere. Of course they will, Morrigan agreed, examining the chalice with knowing eyes. They believe their approach is the only way to prevent total multiversal collapse during the astral syzygy. The term confirmed what Orion had revealed. You knew about this celestial convergence, Harry said, not quite accusingly but with clear concern. The natural thinning of boundaries between realities. Morrigan's expression grew solemn. Yes. It occurs every 27,000 years, a reset point for magical systems across the multiverse. Properly channeled, it refreshes and strengthens the tapestry. Left unguided. She left the dire implications unspoken. And the Arcanum believes harvesting magical energy from expendable realities is the only way to reinforce their chosen anchor points during this convergence, Lyra concluded. A logical but flawed conclusion, Morrigan corrected. The multiverse requires diversity to remain stable. Their approach would create temporary strongholds at the cost of magical evolution and adaptation. She held up the chalice. The artifacts of convergence were created precisely for this cycle, tools to channel the syzygy's energy constructively rather than destructively. Orion studied the goddess with scholarly interest. And the other artifacts? The Codex and Scepter. The scepter remains in Arcanum possession, their primary tool for controlled extraction. The Codex. Morrigan hesitated. The Codex was lost during the last syzygy cycle, cast into the void between realities where even I cannot clearly perceive it. But we need all three to properly channel the convergence, Harry pointed out. Yes, Morrigan acknowledged. Which is why our next task is twofold: recover the scepter from the Arcanum's headquarters, and locate the Codex before the syzygy reaches its peak. Harry exchanged glances with Lyra and Orion. Both looked exhausted but determined, the bonds of their emerging divine circle already strengthening their resolve. "How much time do we have?" he asked. "The syzygy reaches its critical alignment in 7 days," Morrigan replied gravely. 7 days to complete your circle, secure the remaining artifacts, and prepare for a ritual that will either stabilize the multiverse for another cycle, or witness its collapse into magical chaos. The weight of responsibility settled heavily across Harry's shoulders, yet he found himself standing straighter beneath it rather than being crushed. With Lyra and Orion beside him, and Morrigan's guidance, the impossible task felt merely daunting rather than hopeless. "Then we have work to do," he said simply. Morrigan smiled, an expression of genuine warmth that momentarily transformed her divine countenance into something almost human. "Rest first. Recover your strength. Tomorrow, we begin the search for the Codex." As she faded from view, the chalice remained behind, floating gently down into Harry's outstretched hands. Its trilunar energy pulsed in harmony with the divine power flowing through him, one piece of the puzzle secured, with greater challenges still ahead. Hardwick finally found her voice. "Potter, I believe the minister will require a significantly more detailed briefing this time." Harry couldn't help but laugh despite the gravity of their situation. "I imagine he will, unspeakable Hardwick. I imagine he will." As they made their way out of the origin chamber, Harry felt the resonance between himself, Lyra, and Orion strengthening, 3 Nexus souls beginning to align in harmony. The divine circle was taking shape, but remained incomplete. Somewhere out there, other Nexus souls waited to be found, other allies needed to be gathered. The multiverse hung in the balance, with only 7 days remaining until the moment of truth arrived. Chapter 3, Divine Ascension. Dawn painted Grimmauld Place in hues of amber and gold, but the light couldn't reach the basement war room where Harry stood surrounded by multiversal maps. For days had passed since their return with the chalice. For precious days of the 7 they'd been allotted before the syzygy reached its peak. "Still nothing?" Orion asked, entering with 2 steaming mugs. His celestial magic had adapted to Earth's stellar frequency, though his skin still shimmered with captured starlight when agitated. He'd exchanged his formal conclave robes for jeans and a simple button-down shirt that couldn't quite hide his otherworldly nature. Harry accepted the coffee gratefully. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, the flecks of divine energy in his irises glowing more prominently with each passing day. Every location Morrigan suggested has been a dead end. The Codex isn't where her memories indicate it should be. The basement walls rippled with images of realities they'd searched, a jungle world where magic manifested as bioluminescent plant life, an arctic realm where spells were woven from ice crystals, a volcanic dimension where practitioners channeled magma flows. In each, they'd found echoes of the Codex's presence but never the artifact itself. Lyra emerged from the adjacent room where the lunar chalice rested on a pedestal, pulsing with trilunar energy despite being far from its home reality. The chalice's resonance pattern changed again. "It's trying to tell us something, but without the other artifacts to complete the harmonic sequence. We're running out of time," Harry concluded, setting down his mug harder than intended. "The tremors are getting worse." The ministry reported 17 reality pressure points appearing across Britain yesterday alone. "The syzygy's influence grows stronger as the alignment approaches," Orion observed, his astronomer's precision evident even in casual conversation. 3 days remain until peak convergence. Harry ran a hand through his perpetually unruly hair, now streaked with faint luminous strands, another side effect of channeling divine energy. "We need to change our approach. Searching random locations isn't working." "What about the Arcanum?" Lyra suggested. "They've been hunting the artifacts longer than we have. They already possess the scepter, perhaps they've located the Codex as well. Or know something about it we don't," Orion added. "Their multiversal mapping is extensive, even if their methods are questionable." Harry considered this, divine intuition stirring beneath logical thought. "You're right. We've been reactive, following Morrigan's guidance without questioning its limitations. He straightened, decision made. We need to infiltrate the Arcanum's headquarters. Their central operations base. Orion looked shocked. The collective's primary anchor point is the most heavily fortified reality in the multiverse. Even with our combined abilities, a direct assault would be suicide. Who said anything about a direct assault? Harry's expression shifted to something reminiscent of his younger days, the look that had once preceded particularly audacious plans against Voldemort. The Arcanum believes themselves the only ones capable of multiversal preservation. That arrogance creates blind spots. You have a plan, Lyra observed, her elemental energies swirling in anticipation. Half of one, Harry admitted. But first, we need intelligence, someone who understands Arcanum operations from the inside. Illyra Void, Orion suggested grimly. The Hunter Prime who confronted you in your ministry. Harry nodded. Her words have been bothering me since our encounter. She said Morrigan hasn't told me everything, about something called the Origin Cascade, about her role in destabilizing the tapestry. You think Morrigan is hiding something? Lyra asked cautiously. I think gods rarely tell the complete truth, even to their champions. Harry gestured to the multiversal maps. We need to find Illyra Void, but approaching her directly would alert the entire collective. We need bait. What could possibly draw out their Hunter Prime without triggering their full response? Orion wondered. Harry's eyes fixed on the chalice visible in the next room. A signal from one artifact to another. The chalice calling to the scepter across realities. Before further discussion could unfold, the house trembled violently, not from any local disturbance but from a fundamental disruption in reality itself. The walls between rooms momentarily became transparent, revealing glimpses of alternate Grimmauld places in different realities, one consumed by flames, another submerged underwater, a third overgrown with strange crystalline vegetation. The tremor subsided, but left behind a palpable sense of wrongness, as if the very fabric of their world had been stretched to near breaking point. That was stronger than yesterday's fluctuations, Lyra noted, steadying herself against a bookshelf. Harry's communication crystal activated, a modified version of the DA coins he'd created as a teenager, now linked to Hermione at the Ministry. Harry, Hermione's voice emerged, tense with controlled urgency. We've got a situation at Stonehenge. A tear has opened directly above the circle, larger than anything we've recorded. Kingsley's deployed containment teams, but they're reporting, someone coming through. Harry exchanged glances with Lyra and Orion. We're on our way. Tell the teams to maintain distance but not to engage. Already gave that order, Hermione replied. But hurry, whatever's happening isn't waiting for protocol. Harry closed his hand around the communication crystal, already drawing divine power. Orion, secure the chalice. Lyra, I need your elemental barriers ready the moment we arrive. His gaze fixed on the shifting images of alternate realities still flickering across the walls. I think our timeline just accelerated. Stonehenge stood beneath a sky torn open. Where blue should have stretched uninterrupted, a massive vertical rent pulsed with chaotic energies. The ancient stones hummed with responsive magic, their original purpose, long forgotten by modern wizards, suddenly reactivated by the multiversal disturbance. Harry, Lyra, and Orion arrived via divine translocation, a method that bypassed normal apparition restrictions by briefly shifting between reality frequencies. Ministry containment teams had established a perimeter, their spell barriers pitifully inadequate against the scale of the tear. Kingsley Shacklebolt approached immediately, his usual calm demeanor strained. Potter. This is beyond anything we've seen. The syzygy is approaching its peak, Harry explained, divine power already gathering around him in visible waves. These tiers will continue forming with increasing frequency until either we stabilize the boundaries or they collapse completely, Kingsley finished grimly. What exactly are we looking at here? Before Harry could respond, the tier pulsed violently. A figure emerged, not falling or stepping through, but being forcibly expelled from the chaotic energies. She hit the ground within the stone circle, rolling to absorb the impact with practiced grace despite obvious injuries. "That's her," Orion whispered in shock. Elara void. Indeed, the Arcanum's Hunter Prime lay within the circle, her formidable presence diminished by evident battle damage. Her silver mirror eyes flickered erratically, the intricate runes adorning her scalp glowing with unstable energy. Parts of her midnight blue robes had been burned away, revealing skin marked with what appeared to be divine scorch patterns. Harry signaled the ministry teams to maintain their positions while he approached the stone circle with Lyra and Orion flanking him. As they crossed the invisible boundary of the ancient site, reality itself seemed to shift subtly, the stone's original enchantments recognizing and responding to their divine and multiversal energies. Elara looked up at their approach, a bitter laugh escaping her lips despite her obvious pain. "The champion of the fading goddess. Of course you'd be here." She struggled to one knee. "Come to finish what your former master started?" Harry maintained a cautious distance, divine senses extended to assess both Elara and the tears still pulsing ominously above. "What happened to you? Who did this?" "Not who. What?" Elara's silver eyes fixed on him with surprising intensity. "The Arcanum headquarters has fallen. The scepter has been taken. And the Codex." Her expression twisted with something like despair. "The Codex has been activated prematurely." "Impossible," Orion interjected. "The artifacts can only be fully activated during the syzygy alignment." "Precisely the problem," Elara replied, finally managing to stand though clearly favoring her left side. "Forced activation outside alignment parameters has accelerated the convergence decay. The syzygy is now less than 12 hours from peak, not 3 days." Harry felt the truth of her statement resonate through his divine connection to Morrigan. The multiverse was sliding toward collapse faster than anticipated. "Who has the artifacts?" he demanded. "Who attacked the Arcanum?" Elara's mirror eyes reflected their own images back at them, fracturing the light unnaturally. "Someone who should have remained imprisoned in the void between realities. Someone who once courted your goddess before she rejected him." Her voice lowered. "Lord Thorn." The name meant nothing to Harry, but he felt Morrigan's divine essence react violently within him, recognition, alarm, and something almost like fear rippling through their connection. "A fallen deity," Elara continued, noting Harry's reaction. "Cast out during the last syzygy cycle for attempting to rewrite the fundamental laws of magic across all realities. He's been trapped in the spaces between worlds for 27,000 years, until our extraction operations accidentally provided him a pathway back." Lyra stepped forward, elemental energies swirling protectively around her hands. "Why should we believe anything you say? The Arcanum has been systematically destroying entire realities. Preserving essential magical frequencies while allowing failing realities to expire naturally," Elara corrected sharply, then sighed. "But those distinctions hardly matter now. If Thorn succeeds in using the artifacts to channel the syzygy according to his design, all realities will be remade in his image, magic itself rewritten to serve his will alone." The tier above them pulsed more violently, expanding another several feet. The ancient stones of Stonehenge responded, their latent magic flaring visibly as they attempted to contain the multiversal disruption. These stones, Harry realized suddenly. They're not just a magical site, they're a containment mechanism. Elara nodded grimly. "Constructed during the last syzygy cycle as one of many such anchors across your reality. Their purpose has been forgotten, but their magic remains, automatically activating during convergence events to help stabilize reality boundaries." Harry made a swift decision. "Orion, work with the ministry teams to reinforce the stone's natural containment properties. Lyra, establish elemental barriers around the perimeter, earth to stabilize, air to disperse excess energy, water to absorb magical discharge, fire to transmute what can't be contained." They moved to comply without hesitation, the bonds of their divine circle allowing seamless coordination without needless discussion. Harry turned back to Elara. "I need everything you know about Thorn," his capabilities, his intentions, his likely location. The Hunter Prime studied him with calculating intensity. "You've grown stronger since our meeting in your ministry. The goddess has been generous with her power. She straightened despite her injuries. Very well, champion. A temporary alliance against a common enemy." Over the next hour, as Orion and Lyra worked with the ministry teams to contain the tear, Elara revealed what she knew of Lord Thorn. Once a deity of comparable power to Morrigan, he had proposed merging their divine essences to gain sufficient strength to perfect the multiverse, eliminating what he saw as inefficient or flawed magical systems and replacing them with a single, unified approach controlled entirely by him. When Morrigan refused, Elara explained, he attempted to use the artifacts to forcibly channel the syzygy energy 27 millennia ago. The resulting conflict nearly destroyed the multiverse entirely. Morrigan, with the help of her champions at that time, managed to cast him into the void between realities, a non-space where he should have gradually dissipated. But he didn't, Harry guessed. No. He found ways to preserve his essence, to gather power from reality fragments that occasionally fell into the void. Over thousands of years, he reconstructed himself. Elara's expression darkened. The Arcanum detected anomalous energy patterns in the void centuries ago but dismissed them as natural multiversal decay, until our extraction operations near boundary weak points inadvertently provided him enough power to begin influencing events directly. He manipulated you, Harry realized. Guided the Arcanum's operations to create specific weakening patterns that would eventually allow his return. We believed we were following optimal preservation protocols, Elara acknowledged bitterly. Instead, we were creating a pathway for his resurrection. When he finally manifested physically within our headquarters, we were unprepared for his level of power. The tear above Stonehenge suddenly contracted violently before expanding again, a pattern Harry now recognized as symptomatic of deliberate multiversal manipulation rather than natural decay. He's probing realities, Elara confirmed, following his gaze. Searching for the optimal convergence point to conduct his ritual. With both the scepter and codex in his possession, he can create temporary stability sufficient for his purposes. But he still needs the chalice, Harry noted. Yes. Without all three artifacts working in perfect harmony, the syzygy energies would tear him apart despite his divine nature. Elara turned to face him directly. He'll come for it, and soon. His return has destabilized the multiverse to such an extent that the convergence timeline has compressed drastically. As if summoned by her words, a communication crystal in Harry's pocket activated, Hermione's voice emerging urgent and clear. Harry. Multiple tears forming across Britain simultaneously, Hogwarts, the Ministry, Diagon Alley, Godric's Hollow. Reality barriers failing faster than we can respond. Whatever you're going to do, it needs to happen now. Harry made his decision. We're not waiting for Thorn to find us. We're taking the fight to him. He fixed Elara with an uncompromising stare. Where would he establish his convergence point? Where in the multiverse would provide optimal conditions for his ritual? Elara hesitated only briefly. The nexus of realities, a dimensional crossroads where the fundamental boundaries are naturally thinnest. It exists outside normal spacetime, accessible only through specific harmonic frequencies. Her silver eyes narrowed. But assaulting Thorn there would be suicidal. Even with your divine circle, you lack the necessary power to challenge a fully manifested deity. Perhaps, Harry acknowledged, already formulating a plan, but we have something he wants and needs, the chalice. And more importantly, we have something he doesn't expect. And what is that? Elara asked skeptically. Harry's expression hardened with determination. Me. The one variable Morrigan introduced that wasn't present during their last confrontation. A champion with a nexus soul who's died and returned, who's mastered divine artifacts before, who's spent his entire life being underestimated by beings who thought themselves superior. For the first time, something like respect flickered across Elara's face. You truly believe you can succeed where the entire Arcanum Collective failed?
I believe we have no choice but to try, Harry replied simply. Now, how do we reach this nexus? Grimmauld Place had transformed entirely by the time they returned. What had once been a merely magical household had become a multiversal focal point, reality barriers thinning to the extent that different versions of the same location periodically phased into visibility before fading again. The walls themselves seemed more suggestion than substance in certain areas. The chalice, still on its pedestal in the basement war room, pulsed with increasing urgency, responding to the accelerating syzygy and, Harry suspected, the activation of its sibling artifacts. The house wards are barely holding, Lyra reported, elemental senses extended. Reality fluctuations are increasing exponentially. Harry turned to Alara, who despite her injuries had insisted on accompanying them. How long until Thorn completes his preparations? Hours at most, she replied, studying the chalice with undisguised interest. The compressed convergence timeline forces his hand. He must establish his ritual parameters before the syzygy reaches peak alignment. Orion, who had been recalculating stellar positions based on the accelerated timeline, looked up from his work with grave concern. According to these projections, the convergence peak will now occur in approximately 9 hours. The stellar alignment is accelerating unnaturally. Thorn's influence, Alara confirmed. He's using the codex to manipulate convergence vectors, drawing the alignment toward his preferred configuration. Harry placed his hand on the chalice, connecting with its ancient divine energy. Through it, he could sense echoes of the other artifacts, the scepter pulsing with authoritative power, the codex radiating complex harmonics that affected reality itself. And beyond them, a presence of immense age and malevolence, Lord Thorn himself, his divine essence partially recognizable due to its original kinship with Morrigan's power. Morrigan, Harry called softly, extending his awareness to the goddess who had chosen him as champion. We need you now. For several long moments, nothing happened. Then the air before them shimmered, and Morrigan appeared, but diminished, her usual radiance muted, her form more transparent than Harry had ever seen it. My champion, she acknowledged, her voice strained. I feel your call across the fraying tapestry. You know what's happening, Harry said, not a question but a statement. Thorn has returned. Morrigan's expression tightened with ancient pain. Yes. I felt his presence emerge fully 3 hours ago, a void in the harmonics of the multiverse that should not exist. Her gaze shifted to Alara, narrowing slightly. I see you found unexpected allies. Necessity makes strange companions, Alara replied stiffly. The Arcanum may have inadvertently facilitated Thorn's return, but we never intended this outcome. Intentions matter little against results, Morrigan observed coldly before returning her attention to Harry. The situation has grown dire beyond initial projections. Thorn has not merely returned, he has absorbed significant divine energy from the Arcanum's extraction operations. He is now more powerful than when I faced him last. Which is why we need to know everything, Harry insisted. No more selective truths or convenient omissions. What is the origin cascade that Alara mentioned? What role did you play in destabilizing the tapestry? Morrigan's form flickered momentarily, whether from weakening power or reluctance to answer, Harry couldn't tell. Finally, she sighed, a surprisingly human gesture from a divine being. The origin cascade was the first multiversal crisis, a splitting of what was once a single magical reality into countless separate ones. Her voice took on a storyteller's cadence, reciting history so ancient it had become myth in most realities. Before the multiverse as you know it existed, magic operated according to a single set of principles. Thorn and I were aspects of that magic, I representing its creative potential, he its structured application. She paced, her transparent form passing through solid objects as if they were mist. As magic evolved, different approaches and methodologies developed naturally. I embraced this diversity, seeing strength in adaptability and variation. Thorn saw only inefficiency and chaos. So you opposed each other, Lyra guessed. No, not initially, Morrigan corrected, surprising them all.
For eons, we maintained balance between innovation and tradition. But as magical consciousness evolved, developing free will and independent application, Thorn grew increasingly rigid. He began to see variation as corruption rather than evolution. Her expression darkened with painful memory. During what you would consider the dawn of conscious magical practice, Thorn proposed what he called the Great Unification, a forcible realignment of all magical approaches under a single, controlled methodology. When I refused to participate, he attempted to harness the nascent magic of conscious practitioners to achieve his goal regardless. The origin cascade was the result, Harry concluded. Your opposition to each other fractured the original unified reality. Morrigan nodded solemnly. Neither of us anticipated the consequences. What had been one became many, reality itself splintering into countless variations, each developing its own magical rules and methodologies. The multiverse was born from our conflict, the tapestry forming naturally to connect what had been sundered. And the artifacts? Orion asked, scholarly curiosity momentarily overriding tactical concerns. Created afterward, when we realized the magnitude of what had happened, Morrigan replied. Tools to maintain connections between the new realities, to prevent further fracturing while allowing natural evolution to continue. Her gaze grew distant. For thousands of years, we worked together again, preserving the new multiverse we had inadvertently created. Until the last syzygy, Elara interjected. When Thorn again attempted to force unification. Yes. The natural convergence of the syzygy presented an opportunity he couldn't resist, a moment when reality barriers thinned sufficiently for large-scale manipulation. Morrigan's form strengthened slightly as she focused on the immediate threat. Now he returns, with 27,000 years of festering resentment and the power of countless harvested realities at his disposal. Harry absorbed this information, divine intuition helping him perceive implications beyond the mere facts. He doesn't just want control this time, does he? He wants revenge. He intends to unmake everything you've preserved and rebuild it according to his vision. Precisely, Morrigan confirmed gravely. And with both the scepter and codex in his possession, he can establish a framework for that remaking, provided he obtains the chalice to complete the harmonic sequence. Harry turned to Elara. You said we could reach him at the nexus of realities. How? The Hunter Prime straightened, calculation replacing uncertainty in her silver eyes. The Arcanum discovered pathways to the nexus centuries ago, specific vibrational frequencies that, when properly amplified, create temporary access points. With the chalice, we could establish such a pathway, but... She hesitated. Reaching Thorn is only the beginning. Confronting him is another matter entirely. Which is why we're not just bringing the chalice, Harry said decisively. We're bringing the completed divine circle. Morrigan's attention sharpened. You've located another nexus soul. No, Harry replied, his gaze fixed on Elara Void. But I believe one has found us. Stunned silence followed this declaration. Elara herself appeared momentarily thrown off balance, a significant achievement given her calculated demeanor. Impossible, she finally responded. The Arcanum tests all operatives for nexus compatibility. I would have been identified and eliminated centuries ago. Unless you were hiding it, Harry suggested. Consciously or unconsciously. I've felt the resonance since you appeared at Stonehenge, faint but unmistakable. You possess a nexus soul, Elara Void, though you've suppressed its natural harmonics through your Arcanum modifications. Morrigan drifted closer to the Hunter Prime, divine perception examining Elara's essence at levels beyond physical. He speaks truth, she confirmed with evident surprise. Your soul bears the Nexus signature, though heavily masked by Arcanum technological interference. Elara unconsciously touched the silver runes adorning her scalp, Arcanum enhancements that, Harry now realized, might have been designed specifically to suppress her natural multiversal resonance. The final component of the divine circle, Harry pressed. The fourth point needed to complete the harmonic balance. With you, we might stand a chance against Thorn. You ask me to abandon everything I've worked for over centuries, Auror said slowly. To turn against the fundamental principles of the collective. I ask you to save the multiverse, Harry corrected. Including the realities the Arcanum sought to preserve. Thorn won't distinguish between anchor points and expendable worlds, he'll remake everything according to his singular vision. Lyra approached Auror, elemental energies extending in a gesture surprisingly like offering friendship. Your methods were wrong, but your intent was preservation. Now there's a better way, one that doesn't sacrifice diversity for stability. Orion added his perspective from across the room. The Arcanum failed against Thorn. Their approach proved insufficient. Logic dictates attempting an alternative strategy. Auror looked between them, centuries of dedicated service to the Arcanum's mission warring with immediate existential threat. Finally, her silver eyes fixed on Harry with grim resolve. If I agree to this, understand that it changes nothing about my belief that the Arcanum's fundamental assessment was correct, the multiverse is failing and requires intervention. She straightened to her full height. But Thorn represents a more immediate threat to everything, including what we sought to preserve. On that basis alone, I will temporarily align with your circle. Harry nodded acceptance of her qualified commitment. It was enough for now, the resonance between Nexus souls would naturally strengthen once activated, regardless of intellectual reservations. Then we need to prepare immediately, he stated, turning to Morrigan. The ritual to formalize the divine circle, can it be performed here, now, despite the reality fluctuations? Morrigan considered for a moment. Yes. In fact, the thinning barriers may actually facilitate the process. She gestured to the center of the room. Position yourselves around the chalice, north, south, east, west. The artifact will serve as focus for the initial binding. As they moved to comply, Harry felt growing tension in his connection to Morrigan, something beyond the immediate crisis, a premonition of separation that troubled him deeply. What aren't you telling us? He asked quietly as the others took their positions. Morrigan's expression softened with something like regret. When Thorn manifested fully, he directed his first attack not against the Arcanum but against me, an assault across the fundamental divine frequency that connects us as former counterparts. You're wounded, Harry realized, noting again how her form seemed more transparent than usual. More than wounded, she corrected gently. Temporarily diminished to the point where I cannot directly oppose him. My essence is scattered throughout the tapestry, maintaining critical connection points that would otherwise have already collapsed. Her luminous gaze held his. You will face him without my direct intervention, Harry Potter. Your circle must stand alone. The implications settled heavily upon him, they would face a fully manifested deity without Morrigan's divine power to support them directly. Harry felt momentary doubt, quickly replaced by determined resolve. Throughout his life, from Voldemort to the present crisis, he had faced seemingly insurmountable challenges with nothing but his own abilities and the support of those who stood with him. This would be no different, just on a vastly larger scale. We'll find a way, he assured her, then joined the others around the chalice. Morrigan floated to a position above the artifact, her diminished form gathering what power she could still command. The ritual is both simple and profound, she explained. Each of you represents a fundamental aspect of multiversal harmony. Harry, divine authority and leadership. Lyra, elemental balance and adaptation. Orion, cosmic knowledge and perception. Auror, structured preservation and protection. The chalice began to glow more intensely as she spoke, responding to the proximity of four Nexus souls arranged in harmonic formation. Place your hands on the chalice, Morrigan instructed. Allow your natural resonance to emerge without restriction or reservation. Harry placed his palm against the artifact's smooth surface, feeling its ancient power respond immediately to his touch. Around it, the others did the same, Lyra with confidence born of experience, Orion with scholarly precision, Auror with cautious determination. The moment all four connected with the chalice, a harmonic tone emerged,
a perfect chord composed of 4 distinct notes that nonetheless created something greater than their individual contributions. The sound resonated not just audibly but magically, sending ripples through the already weakened reality barrier surrounding them. This bond transcends ordinary magical connection, Morrigan continued, her voice taking on formal cadence. It is both personal choice and cosmic necessity, the alignment of souls whose natural frequencies, when combined, can stabilize or reshape fundamental reality. The harmonic tone intensified, becoming visible as patterns of light that flowed from the chalice into each participant. Harry felt divine energy coursing through him differently than before, not just Morrigan's power channeled through his nexus soul, but something new emerging from the combined resonance of all 4. By your free will and conscious choice, Morrigan intoned, do you accept this bond and the responsibilities it entails? Do you commit to maintaining multiversal balance together, preserving magical diversity while ensuring fundamental stability? I accept, Harry stated firmly, divine power flaring visibly around him. I accept, Lyra echoed, elemental energies swirling in complex patterns that reflected her commitment. I accept, Orion added, stellar magic manifesting as constellations that briefly appeared in the air around him. Elara hesitated only momentarily before her silver eyes reflected the same light emanating from the chalice. I accept, she concluded, her normally controlled voice carrying unexpected emotional weight. The harmonic resonance reached crescendo, light flooding outward from the chalice to completely envelop all 4 participants. For a timeless moment, Harry experienced total awareness of his companions, not just their thoughts or emotions, but their essential natures. Lyra's passionate dedication to balance, Orion's methodical pursuit of cosmic understanding, and even Elara's complex motivations born from witnessing countless realities fade into oblivion. In turn, he felt himself perceived completely by them, his drives, fears, hopes, and history laid bare without judgment or misinterpretation. When the light receded, they remained physically unchanged yet fundamentally transformed. The divine circle was complete, its power evident in the subtle harmonization of their magical auras and the newly formed symbolic markings that had appeared on each of their wrists, unique patterns that together formed a complete multiversal sigil. Morrigan observed them with evident satisfaction despite her weakened state. It is done. The first complete divine circle in 27,000 years. I feel. Elara seemed at a rare loss for words, examining her silver eyes in the reflection of a nearby surface. The arcanum runes on her scalp had reconfigured themselves, no longer suppressing her nexus nature but instead enhancing it. Connected, Orion supplied, his stellar essence visibly stronger and more controlled. Not just to each other but to the tapestry itself. Lyra flexed her fingers, watching as elemental energies responded with unprecedented precision. Like our individual abilities have been, refined, focused. Harry felt it too, his divine power no longer feeling borrowed from Morrigan but instead an intrinsic part of himself, harmonized with his core magical nature. More importantly, he could sense the others through their bond, not reading thoughts, but aware of their general states and locations as if they occupied the same space regardless of physical distance. We're ready, he declared, turning to the weakened goddess. Now, how do we reach Thorn? Morrigan gestured to Elara. The Hunter Prime knows the pathways to the Nexus. With the chalice and your completed circle, you can establish a direct route. Elara nodded, immediately adapting to her new role despite centuries of arcanum conditioning. The harmonic frequency is complex but achievable with our combined resonance. She began tracing calculations in the air, silver light trailing from her fingertips. We'll need to establish a tetrahedral formation around the chalice, each of us amplifying a specific aspect of its multiversal signature. As Elara coordinated their approach with surprising efficiency, Harry moved closer to Morrigan. What happens to you when we leave? He asked quietly, concern evident despite the urgency of their mission. I will continue maintaining critical junctures in the tapestry as long as my scattered essence permits, she replied with dignified acceptance. If you succeed, there may be sufficient harmony restored for me to reconstitute fully. If not. She left the implication unspoken. We won't fail, Harry promised,
though he understood the overwhelming odds they faced. Morrigan's expression softened with something like maternal pride. "You have exceeded my every expectation, Harry Potter. Whatever happens now, know that my choice of champion was the one decision I will never regret." Her form began to fade, divine energy dissipating as she returned to her work holding together critical points in the fraying multiversal tapestry. "Remember," her voice lingered after her image had disappeared completely, "the artifacts respond to intent as much as action. Thorn's power is great, but his vision is singular. Your circle contains multitudes, therein lies your true strength." With Morrigan gone, Harry rejoined the others around the chalice. Reality fluctuations had intensified throughout Grimmauld Place, walls and floors periodically becoming transparent to reveal glimpses of alternate versions of the house across different timelines and dimensions. "The pathway calculation is complete," Alara announced, displaying a complex multidimensional equation composed of silver light. "We'll need to synchronize perfectly, each channeling our aspect of the divine circle through the chalice simultaneously." "What should we expect at the nexus itself?" Lyra asked, positioning herself at her designated point in the formation. "A dimensional crossroads outside conventional spacetime," Alara explained. "Physical laws as you understand them are malleable there. Reality responds directly to will and intent, especially for beings of significant power." "Like Thorn," Orion noted grimly. "Precisely. He will have shaped the environment to his advantage, likely a configuration that amplifies his particular divine frequency while suppressing others." Alara's silver eyes reflected the calculations still hanging in the air between them. "We should anticipate reality distortions, temporal anomalies, and direct attacks against our bond." Harry lifted the chalice from its pedestal, feeling its power respond eagerly to the completed divine circle. "Focus on our connection. No matter what happens, no matter what we see or experience, remember that our strength lies in harmony, not individual power." They took their positions, north, south, east, west, around Harry who stood at the center holding the chalice. Each placed one hand on the artifact, their newly formed bond immediately strengthening the connection. Alara began the incantation, not spellwork as wizards understood it, but a complex harmonic sequence that resonated with the fabric of reality itself. Orion joined next, adding stellar mathematical precision that defined their destination coordinates. Lyra contributed elemental stabilization, ensuring their essences would remain intact during the transition between dimensional planes. Harry channeled divine authority through the chalice, commanding a pathway to open rather than requesting it, the difference between asking reality for permission and informing it of your intentions with such conviction that it complies. The air before them split vertically, not a tear like those appearing randomly throughout the world, but a precisely formed doorway composed of perfectly aligned magical frequencies. Through it, they could see their destination, a massive crystalline platform floating in a void where streams of raw reality flowed like rivers through an endless cosmos. "The nexus of realities," Alara confirmed. "Thorn will have established his ritual site at the precise convergence point." Harry could feel it, an immense concentration of power emanating from somewhere beyond their immediate view. The familiar resonance of the scepter and codex called to the chalice in his hands, their sibling artifacts responding to proximity despite being wielded by opposing forces. "Stay together," Harry instructed as they prepared to step through. "Whatever happens, whatever we see, we move as one." Together, the completed divine circle crossed the threshold into the nexus of realities, the doorway sealing behind them with a sound like crystal chimes. The environment defied conventional description. What appeared initially as a crystalline platform proved to be merely one stable surface among countless others floating in a void where direction had no meaning. Above, below, and around them in all directions flowed streams of raw magical essence, the fundamental building blocks of reality itself made visible as rivers of multicolored light that intersected and diverged in complex patterns. Reality in its purest form, Orion breathed, his astronomer's precision momentarily overwhelmed by the spectacle. "The raw material from which all magical worlds are composed. And currently being redirected," Alara noted grimly, pointing to where the streams unnaturally bent toward a distant structure. At what might be considered the center of the nexus, though conventional spatial relationships hardly applied, stood a massive crystalline fortress that hadn't been formed but rather grown from the substance of the nexus itself. Its architecture defied Euclidean geometry, towers and spires extending in directions that seemed to fold back upon themselves while somehow remaining structurally coherent. Thorn's sanctum, Harry identified, divine senses detecting the immense power concentrated within. He's drawing reality streams toward it, preparing for the syzygy alignment. Lyra's elemental awareness extended, analyzing the streams with growing concern. He's not just redirecting them, he's filtering them, stripping away variations and reducing them to base components that match a specific frequency. His frequency, Lyra concluded. The first stage of his unification process. When the syzygy reaches peak alignment, he'll use that homogenized essence to override existing magical patterns throughout the multiverse. Harry studied the fortress, noting what appeared to be a central spire where energy concentration was highest. The artifacts will be there, at the focal point where the streams converge. As if responding to their presence, the atmosphere around them shifted. What had been clear visibility across impossible distances suddenly became obscured by manifesting mist, not natural fog but the physical representation of hostile attention. "He knows we're here," Orion warned unnecessarily. The mist coalesced rapidly, forming into humanoid shapes that surrounded their position, each a perfect replica of Lord Thorn as he had appeared during different eras and in different realities. Hundreds of variations of the same entity, all focusing identical malevolent attention upon the intruders. The champion arrives with his circle complete, the Thorns spoke in perfect unison, their voices overlapping to create a disorienting harmonic effect. How predictable Morrigan remains, even after 27,000 years. Harry stepped forward, the chalice held firmly in his grasp. "Lord Thorn. I believe you have something that doesn't belong to you." The nearest Thorn manifestation, this one appearing as a regal figure in ancient ceremonial attire, smiled with cold amusement. Possession has always been Morrigan's primary concern. Ownership. Individual claim. He gestured expansively, encompassing the flowing reality streams. "I see only resource and purpose, magical essence serving its optimal function rather than fragmenting into chaotic variation." "You see uniformity where there should be diversity," Lyra countered, elemental energies swirling protectively around the circle. "Evolution requires variation. Evolution requires direction," all the Thorns responded simultaneously. 27,000 years observing from the void between realities has shown me the inefficiency of Morrigan's approach. Countless magical systems developed, flourished briefly, then collapsed from their own inherent contradictions. Orion's stellar knowledge provided immediate rebuttal. And countless others adapted, found balance, created innovations that strengthened the entire tapestry. The Thorns' expressions hardened with synchronized disdain. Temporary achievements within a fundamentally flawed framework. The multiverse fractured when it should have remained unified. The syzygy offers opportunity to correct that original error, to return magic to its optimal state under centralized guidance. "Your guidance," Harry stated flatly. "Mine. Morrigan's. The distinction matters little, what matters is unified purpose rather than chaotic individualism." The primary Thorn manifestation studied Harry with unsettling intensity. "You could join me in this great recalibration, champion. Your Nexus soul would serve admirably within my new order." Harry felt a subtle magical pressure against his mind, not crude mental invasion but something more insidious, a divine suggestion that bypassed normal defenses to speak directly to his deepest uncertainties. For a moment, he glimpsed Thorn's vision, a multiverse of perfect magical harmony, without conflict or contradiction, every practitioner operating within an elegant unified system. The temptation lasted only seconds before the divine circle's bond shattered the illusion. Harry felt Lyra's passionate commitment to diversity, Orion's appreciation for cosmic variation, and most surprisingly, Illyra's hard-earned understanding that preservation without adaptation was merely stagnation. "Not interested," Harry replied simply, his rejection carrying the combined conviction of the entire circle. The thorn manifestations flickered with momentary surprise before their expressions hardened into synchronized determination. Then we proceed as expected, they declared. Bring the chalice and witness the dawning of magical reunification. The mist forms dissolved, reality around the divine circle shifting abruptly. Without experiencing any sensation of movement, they found themselves transported directly to the central chamber of Thorn's fortress, a vast spherical space where reality streams converged from all directions into a single focal point. Suspended in midair at precisely measured intervals were the scepter and codex, the former a rod of authority that pulsed with concentrated command, the latter an impossibly complex three-dimensional text that constantly rewrote itself as reality fluctuated around it. Between them floated Lord Thorn himself, no longer multiple manifestations but a single consolidated entity of tremendous power. His true form combined aspects of all his previous appearances, ageless, perfect in symmetry, radiating divine authority that predated the multiverse itself. Unlike Morrigan's wild, creative energy, his power manifested as structured brilliance, the embodiment of pattern and order taken to their ultimate expression. The circle completes itself, he observed, his voice resonating directly through magical frequency rather than mere sound. And brings the final component as anticipated. The chalice in Harry's hands pulsed urgently, responding to proximity with its sibling artifacts. He could feel it straining toward completion, the three artifacts designed to work in perfect harmony despite currently being wielded by opposing forces. Your timing is impeccable, Thorn continued, gesturing to where reality streams visibly accelerated their flow through the chamber. The syzygy approaches peak alignment. Soon the fundamental restructuring begins. Harry assessed their situation rapidly, divine senses extending to identify potential weaknesses in Thorn's position. The deity's power was immense, far beyond what their newly formed circle could directly challenge. But power wasn't everything. Harry had learned that lesson repeatedly throughout his life. Formation Delta, he said quietly to his companions, the divine bond allowing his meaning to transfer without detailed explanation. They moved smoothly into position, a defensive arrangement that maximized their combined strengths while maintaining multiple avenues of approach. Thorn observed their coordination with detached interest. Fascinating. Morrigan has taught you well for one so newly elevated. His attention shifted to Alara with particular intensity. And the Arcanum's Hunter Prime joins her enemy. The void is indeed filled with irony. The Arcanum sought preservation, Alara replied coolly. Your approach offers only homogenization. A semantic distinction at best, Thorn dismissed. Both recognize the fundamental truth, the current multiversal structure cannot sustain itself. The difference lies merely in methodology. As he spoke, Harry noticed subtle manipulations of the reality streams. Thorn wasn't merely waiting for the syzygy but actively accelerating it, using the scepter and codex to draw the alignment toward his preferred configuration. Now, Harry signaled through their bond. The divine circle activated with synchronized precision. Lyra unleashed elemental disruption against the reality streams feeding Thorn's ritual, while Orion applied stellar calculations to counteract the acceleration. Alara, drawing on centuries of arcanum knowledge, targeted specific harmonic points in Thorn's carefully constructed pattern. Harry himself channeled divine authority directly at Thorn, challenging his control over the convergence. Their combined attack achieved momentary success, the reality streams faltered, the acceleration temporarily reversed. Thorn's expression registered genuine surprise before settling into calculated assessment. Impressive coordination for such a newly formed circle, he acknowledged. But ultimately futile. With a gesture that seemed almost casual, he released a fraction of his full power, divine energy that had been accumulating for 27,000 years, enhanced by the partial activation of the artifacts. The resulting wave struck their combined defenses like a tsunami hitting a sandcastle. Harry felt their formation shatter, the four of them thrown in separate directions by the overwhelming force. The chalice remained clutched in his hands only through sheer determination, its surface burning with energy that would have disintegrated an ordinary mortal. Reality itself buckled around them, the nexus responding to Thorn's will by separating the divine circle physically. Harry found himself on a crystalline platform now distant from his companions, each similarly isolated on their own fragmentary surfaces. Divide and conquer, the oldest strategy, Thorn commented, appearing simultaneously before each of them despite maintaining his position at the ritual center. Your circle's power depends on proximity and harmonic alignment. Apart, you're merely individuals with slightly enhanced capabilities. Harry felt the bond straining but holding despite the physical separation, a testament to the fundamental nature of their connection. Through it, he could still sense the others, Lyra battling localized reality distortions with increasingly creative elemental applications, Orion calculating stellar vectors to potentially reunite their platforms, Elara analyzing Thorn's manifestations for exploitable inconsistencies. You misunderstand the nature of our bond, Harry replied, divine energy gathering around him as he rose to his feet. It doesn't depend on physical proximity. To demonstrate, he channeled power through their connection, feeling the others respond instantly. Despite their separation, their energies synchronized, creating a harmonic pattern that momentarily stabilized the chaotic reality fluctuations Thorn had initiated. The deity's expression flickered with annoyance. A temporary resistance at best. The syzygy approaches its peak. Without all three artifacts in harmonic alignment, your efforts merely delay the inevitable. He gestured toward the chalice in Harry's hands. The multiverse fractures further with each passing moment. Even now, countless realities suffer catastrophic boundary failures. Billions of lives hang in the balance. Surrender the chalice, allow the alignment to complete properly, and their suffering ends. To emphasize his point, Thorn manipulated the nexus to show them glimpses of the crisis unfolding across multiple realities, Harry's own world where the Ministry fought desperately against multiplying tiers in reality, Lyra's elemental realm where fundamental forces warred against each other, Orion's conclave where stellar magic fluctuated dangerously despite their previous intervention, dozens of other worlds facing similar existential threats. This is the legacy of Morrigan's approach, Thorn pressed. Endless suffering as realities struggle against their inherent contradictions. I offer resolution, unified, stable, eternal. Harry felt momentary doubt, not from Thorn's arguments but from witnessing the genuine suffering occurring across the multiverse. The chalice pulsed in his hands, responding to his emotional state with sympathetic resonance. Through their bond, he felt similar reactions from his companions, Lyra's distress at elemental imbalance, Orion's concern for stellar catastrophe, Elara's confirmation that Thorn showed them truth rather than illusion. But beneath those immediate reactions, Harry sensed something deeper in their collective consciousness, understanding that diversity itself, despite its inherent tensions and occasional failures, represented magic's greatest strength. The very adaptability that Thorn dismissed as inefficient was what had allowed countless practitioners across innumerable realities to survive and thrive through challenges that no single system could have anticipated. You're right about one thing, Harry acknowledged, divine power building steadily around him. The multiverse needs stability. But not at the cost of its fundamental nature. He raised the chalice, connecting more deeply with its ancient purpose. These artifacts weren't created to force unification, but to maintain balance between necessary order and essential diversity. Thorn's expression darkened. You parrot Morrigan's philosophy without understanding the mathematical inevitability of systemic collapse. The multiverse requires fundamental restructuring to survive. No, Harry countered, divine inspiration flowing through him. It requires proper alignment, harmony rather than uniformity. With sudden clarity, Harry understood what needed to be done. The artifacts weren't merely tools for maintaining boundaries between realities, they were instruments of harmonic convergence, designed to bring diverse magical systems into balanced relationship without eliminating their unique properties. Through the divine bond, he shared this realization with his circle. Their response was immediate, not just intellectual understanding but intuitive recognition that resonated through their connected nexus souls. Now, Harry commanded, channeling divine authority through the chalice with unprecedented focus. Across their separated platforms, the divine circle responded as one. Lyra directed elemental forces to create a bridge of pure magical energy between their positions. Orion calculated the precise harmonic frequency needed to counter Thorn's reality manipulation. Elara deployed her arcanum knowledge to establish a containment pattern around the deity's manifestations. Harry felt their combined power flow through him into the chalice, which blazed with renewed purpose. The artifact responded by establishing a harmonic connection with its siblings, a resonance that temporarily superseded Thorn's control despite his immense power. Impossible, the deity growled, divine authority clashing against the unexpected resistance. The artifacts respond to highest authority, they respond to proper balance, Harry corrected, advancing along Lyra's elemental bridge toward the ritual center. Something you've forgotten in your obsession with unification. The scepter and codex trembled in their suspended positions, caught between Thorn's established control and the harmonic call of the chalice now amplified by the divine circle's combined will. Recognizing the threat, Thorn abandoned subtlety for raw power. Divine energy exploded outward from his position, reality itself warping under the pressure of his unrestrained might. The elemental bridge shattered, platforms disintegrated, and the very fabric of the nexus began to fracture along new fault lines. Enough resistance! Thorn roared, his perfect form shifting to reveal something older and more primal, a being of pure mathematical precision that predated physical manifestation. The syzygy reaches its peak. The reunification commences now. Indeed, the reality streams had accelerated to blinding speed, their convergence creating a singularity point at the exact center of the ritual chamber. The scepter and codex pulsed in synchronized rhythm, drawing the streams into patterns that matched Thorn's divine frequency. Harry found himself falling through disintegrating reality, the chalice clutched against his chest as divine power struggled against overwhelming force. Through their bond, he felt his companions similarly tumbling through the maelstrom of unraveling dimensional fabric. Then, in the moment of apparent defeat, he felt something unexpected, Morrigan's presence, not as direct intervention but as inspiration flowing through their bond. Not her power, but her knowledge, her memory of the artifact's true purpose and the original harmonic sequence they had been designed to establish. The circle. Harry called out, the bond carrying his voice directly to his companion's consciousness. Complete formation. Despite physical impossibility, despite the reality storm tearing at their very existence, the divine circle responded to his call. Their bond transcended conventional space, allowing their essences to align regardless of apparent location. Harry felt them converge around him, not physically but harmonically, their nexus souls synchronizing to a degree that transcended the limitations Thorn had imposed. The chalice accepts the circle's intent, Harry declared, divine authority flowing through him with perfect clarity. Let the artifacts remember their true purpose. The chalice flared with power beyond anything they had witnessed before, its harmonic call reaching across the chaotic void to its sibling artifacts. The scepter and codex responded instantly, their original programming recognizing the completed divine circle as the authorized configuration they had been designed to serve. Thorn howled in rage as the artifacts slipped from his control, their combined resonance establishing a counter-pattern to his forced unification. Where he sought to impose a single frequency across all reality streams, the artifacts instead began to harmonize the streams while preserving their unique signatures. No, the deity raged, directing his accumulated power against the emerging harmonic pattern. 27,000 years of preparation. The mathematical perfection of unified magic. Harry and his circle found themselves drawn to the ritual center, their combined essences aligned with the artifact's original purpose. Reality stabilized around them as the harmonic pattern strengthened, the nexus responding to proper balance rather than forced conformity. The artifacts remember, Harry stated with absolute certainty, the chalice now floating before him in perfect alignment with the scepter and codex. As does the multiverse itself. The three artifacts formed a triangle, rotating slowly around a central point where the divine circle now stood united, Harry, Lyra, Orion, and Elara each representing a fundamental aspect of multiversal harmony. Thorn, his manifestation flickering between forms as his control weakened, made one final desperate assault, not against the artifacts but against the divine circle itself.
If I cannot guide reunification, then none shall, he declared, divine power condensing into a spear of pure negation aimed directly at the harmonizing artifacts. What happened next occurred too quickly for conscious processing. Harry felt danger through the divine bond and reacted instinctively, placing himself between Thorn's attack and the stabilizing artifacts. Divine power flared around him in protective response, but even his enhanced capabilities couldn't fully counter a direct assault from a manifested deity of Thorn's magnitude. The spear struck, divine negation tearing through Harry's defenses to pierce his physical form. He felt searing pain as his very essence began to unravel, the mortal component of his being unable to withstand such fundamental attack. Yet instead of destruction, something unexpected occurred. The divine circle's bond flared in response, his companions channeling their combined power not just to shield him but to transform him. Lyra contributed elemental adaptation, Orion provided cosmic resilience, Elara added structural reinforcement. Harry felt his essence changing, transcending his original limitations as Morrigan's champion to become something more. The divine power that had been granted temporarily now became fundamental to his nature, his nexus soul expanding to incorporate aspects previously beyond mortal capacity. Thorn's attack dissipated against this transformation, his expression shifting from rage to disbelief as he witnessed what was occurring. Ascension, he whispered in recognition. The circle elevates its core. Harry felt the change complete, his awareness expanding beyond previous constraints to encompass multiversal perspectives. He remained himself, Harry Potter with all his memories, values, and connections, but now existing at a higher frequency of being. And he wasn't alone in this transformation. Through their bond, he felt his companions undergoing similar elevation, not to identical status but to complementary aspects of a unified divine pantheon. Lyra becoming the embodiment of elemental harmony, Orion ascending as cosmic perception, Elara transforming into structural preservation, while Harry himself emerged as balanced authority. The artifacts responded to this ascension by aligning perfectly with their new wielders, no longer tools used by mortals but extensions of divine will operating according to their original design. Thorn, witnessing the emergence of a divine pantheon specifically configured to counter his unification approach, made one final attempt to salvage his plans. He directed the convergent reality streams against the newly ascended circle, trying to overwhelm them with raw power before their transformation fully stabilized. The syzygy reaches peak alignment, he declared. Reality reconfigures now, either to my design or to chaos. Indeed, the reality streams had reached maximum convergence, their combined energy creating a singularity point of unimaginable power. The multiverse hung in perfect balance for one critical moment, the syzygy alignment creating a nexus where fundamental patterns could be either reinforced or rewritten. Harry, now functioning at a divine level of awareness, perceived the entire multiversal structure as a single interconnected system. Through the artifacts and his elevated consciousness, he understood exactly what needed to be done. Not chaos, he stated, his voice carrying multiversal authority. And not artificial uniformity. Balance. The divine circle moved in perfect coordination, each member directing their aspect of power through the aligned artifacts. The chalice, scepter, and codex responded by establishing a harmonic pattern that spread outward through the reality streams, not erasing their differences but bringing them into sustainable relationship. Where boundaries had weakened to the point of collapse, they were reinforced. Where isolated realities had become stagnant, controlled connecting points were established. Where magical systems had grown dangerously incompatible, harmonic interfaces developed to allow exchange without destruction. Thorn fought against this pattern with decreasing effectiveness, his singular vision unable to counter the diverse yet unified approach of the newly ascended pantheon. You cannot sustain this. He raged, his perfect form beginning to fragment as the reality pattern shifted away from his preferred configuration. Diversity breeds contradiction. Contradiction leads to collapse. Only without proper balance, Harry replied, not with anger but with something approaching compassion. He could now perceive Thorn's fundamental nature, not evil but rather the embodiment of order taken to harmful extreme, just as unchecked diversity without structure would indeed lead to chaos.
Understanding this, Harry made a decision that surprised even his divine companions. Instead of attempting to destroy or banish Thorn, he extended the harmonic pattern to include him, offering integration rather than exile. Your perspective has value, Harry acknowledged, the Pantheon's combined power creating a space where Thorn's essence could exist in balanced relationship rather than dominant control. Order and structure are necessary components of a functional multiverse. But they must exist in harmony with innovation and variation. Thorn's fragmentation slowed as he perceived the offered alternative, not defeat but redefinition, a role within a balanced system rather than control over a unified one. For a moment that stretched across multiversal awareness, the ancient deity considered this unprecedented offer. Harry could sense the internal conflict, 27,000 years of resentment and certainty warring against the mathematical elegance of the harmonic pattern now spreading throughout the multiverse. I cannot accept subordination, Thorn finally declared, though with diminished conviction. My vision is mathematically optimal. Not subordination, Harry corrected. Balance. Equal voice in a diverse chorus rather than sole conductor of a uniform orchestra. The syzygy reached its absolute peak, reality streams perfectly aligned, the artifacts at maximum harmonic resonance, the newly ascended pantheon fully manifested. In this critical moment, all possibilities existed simultaneously, multiversal configuration hanging in perfect equipoise. Thorn made his choice. Then I choose the void, he declared, his essence contracting rather than accepting the offered integration. Until mathematics inevitably proves my approach correct. Before the Pantheon could respond, Thorn directed his remaining power inward, collapsing his divine form into a singularity that vanished from the nexus, not destroyed but self-exiled to the spaces between realities once more. With his departure, the harmonic pattern established by the artifacts and Pantheon flowed unimpeded through the reality streams. The syzygy's energy, no longer contested, distributed perfectly throughout the multiverse, reinforcing boundaries while maintaining connections, preserving diversity while ensuring compatibility. Harry felt the pattern stabilize, the critical moment passing as reality streams began to return to their normal flow rates. The multiverse had been preserved, not forced into unnatural uniformity, not allowed to collapse into chaos, but guided toward sustainable balance. As their divine awareness extended outward, the Pantheon witnessed the immediate effects of their intervention. Across countless realities, the tears and pressure points began to heal. In Harry's home world, the Ministry's frantic containment efforts suddenly became unnecessary as reality stabilized naturally. In Lyra's elemental realm, the fundamental forces rebalanced themselves. In Orion's conclave, stellar magic resumed its proper cycles. And in the void between realities, they sensed something else, Morrigan's scattered essence beginning to reconverge, drawn by the newly established harmonic pattern. Her divine presence, no longer needed to hold critical junctures together manually, could now reconstitute itself naturally. It is done, Harry stated, the divine authority in his voice tempered by the human compassion that remained fundamental to his nature despite his ascension. The syzygy has been properly channeled. The multiverse stabilized. The artifacts, chalice, scepter, and codex, pulsed in synchronized harmony, their purpose fulfilled for another cycle. They would remain active, maintaining the established pattern until the next syzygy 27,000 years hence. As the critical moment passed, the Pantheon felt their divine consciousness gradually contracting, not diminishing but focusing. They remained ascended, transformed beyond their original mortal limitations, but returning to more individualized awareness rather than the expanded multiversal perception they had briefly experienced. What happens now? Lyra asked, her elemental aspect stabilizing into a form that, while clearly divine, retained her essential personality and appearance. We maintain what we've established, Harry replied, feeling the responsibilities of their ascension settling into clearer definition. The multiverse requires ongoing harmonization, not just crisis intervention. Orion, cosmic perspective illuminating possibilities beyond immediate concerns, gestured to the now normalized reality streams. We could establish a new approach,
neither the Arcanum's forced preservation nor Thorn's artificial unification, but guided evolution with proper support structures. The divine circle as stewards rather than rulers, Elara concluded, her preservationist aspect already analyzing optimal approaches to maintaining the harmonic pattern they had established. Before they could discuss further implications, a familiar presence manifested within the nexus, Morrigan, her divine form fully reconstituted and radiating approval. "My champions," she greeted them, though the term seemed inadequate given their ascension. "You have succeeded beyond all expectation." Harry studied his former patron with new perception, seeing her true nature more clearly than before. "You knew this might happen," he observed without accusation. "Our ascension was always a possibility." Morrigan inclined her head in acknowledgement. "A possibility, yes. Though far from guaranteed. Divine ascension requires both exceptional circumstances and worthy vessels." Her expression grew solemn. "Not all divine circles achieve what you have accomplished today." "And now?" Lyra asked. "Do we simply return to our original realities as if nothing has changed?" "You cannot return entirely to what you were," Morrigan explained. "Ascension is irreversible. But how you express your new nature, that remains your choice." Harry considered this, feeling both the weight and freedom of their transformation. The multiverse needs active stewardship, not distant observation. The Arcanum tried one approach, Thorn another. Both failed because they lost connection with what they claimed to preserve. He looked to his companions, feeling their agreement through their now permanent bond. "We maintain our connections to our home realities while establishing a new framework for multiversal harmony, one that respects diversity while providing necessary structure. The Nexus itself could serve as our central connection point," Orion suggested, already envisioning modifications to make it suitable for ongoing operations rather than just crisis intervention. "And the artifacts?" Elara asked, gesturing to where the three divine tools continued their synchronized pulsing. "They remain active but distributed," Harry decided. "Kept separate except during times of necessity, preventing any single entity from wielding their combined power unilaterally." Morrigan observed their discussion with evident satisfaction. "You understand the fundamental principle already, balance in all things, including power itself." She approached Harry specifically, her divine essence resonating with his newly elevated nature in a relationship now of equals rather than patron and champion. "The multiverse enters a new cycle under your stewardship," she said formally. "My role diminishes as yours ascends, as it should be. Evolution applies to divine beings as much as mortal ones." Harry understood the implications. Morrigan herself would step back from direct intervention, allowing the new pantheon to guide the multiverse according to their balanced perspective. "We'll consult you when needed," he assured her, genuine respect in his tone. "I remain available," she confirmed with a smile. "Though I suspect you'll need my guidance less frequently than you imagine." With a gesture that combined blessing and farewell, Morrigan dissolved her manifestation, not departing entirely but receding to a more distant level of divine operation, allowing the newly ascended circle to assume their responsibilities without hovering oversight. Harry turned to his companions, his divine circle, his pantheon, his closest allies across all realities. "We should return to Earth briefly. There are explanations owed and arrangements to be made." Together, they established a pathway from the Nexus back to Harry's original reality, their combined divine will making such transportation effortless where once it had required complex calculations and precise timing. They appeared in the Minister for Magic's office, where Kingsley Shacklebolt and Hermione Granger were in the midst of crisis management. The sudden manifestation of four clearly transformed beings caused an understandable moment of alarm before recognition set in. "Harry?" Hermione questioned, her analytical mind already processing the obvious changes in her friend. His appearance remained fundamentally the same, yet undeniably different, divine energy now fully integrated with his essential nature rather than channeled from an external source. "It's me," he confirmed with a smile that somehow conveyed both his familiar humanity and his transcendent ascension simultaneously. "We were successful. The multiversal crisis has been resolved."
What followed was perhaps the most unusual briefing in ministry history, an explanation of divine ascension, multiversal harmonization, and the establishment of a new stewardship approach to reality maintenance. To their credit, both Kingsley and Hermione adapted to these extraordinary revelations with remarkable composure. "So you're essentially gods now?" Kingsley finally asked, his practical nature focusing on immediate implications. "Divine beings with specific harmonizing functions," Harry clarified, knowing the terminology mattered little compared to the reality. "We'll maintain connections to our original realities while establishing a new framework for multiversal stability." "Which means what, exactly, for our world?" Hermione asked, already considering political and social ramifications. "Minimal direct intervention," Harry assured her. "We'll establish a small facility here, something between an embassy and a monitoring station. Otherwise, Earth's magical development continues on its natural course." Discussions continued for hours, establishing protocols, explanations for the wider magical community, and personal arrangements. Throughout it all, Harry maintained the balance that had defined his approach from the beginning: respect for authority without submission to it, recognition of practical concerns alongside cosmic responsibilities. Eventually, the Divine Circle departed the ministry to attend to personal matters before establishing their new operational framework. For Harry, this meant private conversations with those closest to him, explaining his transformation and future role in terms they could understand, assuring them that while his nature had changed, his core values and connections remained intact. Some relationships would necessarily transform. Others would maintain their essential character despite his ascension. All would require patience and honest communication as everyone adapted to the new reality. Days later, the Divine Circle convened at their newly established Nexus access point, a modest facility hidden within an expanded pocket of reality connected to Grimmauld Place but existing partially outside normal spacetime. "The multiverse has begun stabilizing along the harmonic pattern we established," Orion reported, cosmic awareness extended across reality boundaries. "Magical systems are naturally adapting to the reinforced framework. The Arcanum's remaining operations have largely disbanded," Elara added, her preservationist aspect monitoring organizational responses across realities. "Some have requested guidance on integrating with our new approach." "And the artifacts?" Harry asked. "Distributed as agreed," Lyra confirmed. The chalice returned to the Trilunar Temple with enhanced protections, the scepter secured within a stellar vault in Orion's conclave, the codex housed here within our primary facility. Harry nodded approval, feeling the balanced harmony they had established both within their pantheon and throughout the multiverse. The work had just begun, establishing proper protocols for intervention, developing training for potential future divine circles, creating sustainable systems that wouldn't require constant divine micromanagement. Yet for the first time since Morrigan had appeared in that abandoned warehouse, Harry felt genuine optimism about the future. Not because all problems had been solved, they hadn't, but because they had established a framework within which solutions could be found without sacrificing either stability or diversity. "There will be challenges," he acknowledged to his companions. "Thorn may eventually return. Other threats we haven't anticipated will emerge. The nature of existence includes both harmony and disruption. Balance in all things," Lyra agreed with a smile that somehow encompassed both her elemental wisdom and her personal warmth. Harry extended his awareness outward one final time, feeling the countless realities continuing their unique developments within the harmonized framework they had established. So much diversity, so many approaches to magic, so many possibilities, all now able to evolve without risk of catastrophic collapse. This was what Morrigan had seen in him from the beginning, not just power or courage, but the fundamental understanding that true strength came from harmony rather than uniformity, from connections rather than control. As the Divine Circle began their work in earnest, Harry felt something he had sought throughout his extraordinary life: purpose aligned perfectly with capability, responsibility matched with authority, cosmic significance balanced with personal connection. The goddess of magic had chosen well when she selected him as her champion. But in ascending beyond that role to become part of a balanced pantheon, Harry and his circle had achieved something even she might not have fully anticipated: a new approach to multiversal stewardship that honored both order and chaos, preservation and evolution, unity and diversity. Balance in all things, including divinity itself. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.